Welcome to the Igem Opening Weekend Festival. Local people solving local problems all over the world using the power of synthetic biology.
3, 2, 1.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the moment you've all been waiting for.
Taking part in the biggest synthetic biology competition in the world.
The work you have done and will continue to do is critical.
This is not the old Igem. This is the future Igem.
Hello there, virtual Igem.
Hello, Igem.
Hello, Igem.
Greetings to the Igem community.
We're kind of separated, but still we find our ways to kind of come together and work on this project.
And the winner is...
iGemmers all around the world, please welcome Igem Vice President of Creative Productions, Nemanja Stipovic.
Hello everyone, welcome to our studio. Everything you're seeing right now is getting produced right here and delivered to your screens, to many remote homes of our 350 Igem teams. We are doing this event differently this year because we learned a lesson in 2020. Make it easy for everyone to join and make it accessible for everyone everywhere in the world. It is shorter, it is curated, fast-paced, and we will have hosts who will guide you through all the sessions, or stories as we like to call them. But the idea behind the event is the same. Igem experience is not just an experience at the end of the year. This is the start of your roller coaster, so we want to celebrate it. This festival is made by Igemers, for Igemers. Most of the people you will see have been through this roller coaster already and will share their stories with you. The hosts and I have also participated in the Igem competition a few years ago, so maybe next year it will be one of you hosting this festival. This weekend we are also launching some new programs. Igem podcasts, Igem TV, a merch store, and a very special project saved for the end, Jamboree parties. Finally, I would like to thank a few people that made this happen. Everything you are seeing right now was built by our new creative productions team. Just like you and me, they're also Igemers. We have Camila and Japa in Lithuania, who designed and developed the website. We have Fabio in Switzerland and Romano in the UAE, who built the backend infrastructure. We have Justine in Australia, who edited the videos, and we have Salva in Spain and Shiva in India, who have been working on some new programs. The hosts, of course, Guilherme, Carolina, Zishan, who have been preparing this show with me for the past 2 months. I can say that making all of this has been one giant big wiki freeze for all of us. But most of all, I want to thank you, the 344 Igem teams. Without your desire to participate in this competition, to solve local problems using synthetic biology, none of this would be worthwhile. So I hope you enjoyed this festival and the crazy roller coaster ride ahead of you in the next months. All I can say from my experiences, it will not be easy at all, but it will be worth it. So let's start the festival.
Please welcome your hosts. Joining us live from Brazil, Igem producer Guilherme. Live from France, Global Ambassador Coordinator Carolina. And finally, from Australia, Director of Igem Podcasts, Zishan.
Woohoo! Hello everyone, welcome!
Hey! Hello everyone! Vamos começar o show!
Hello Susamen, welcome to Igem 2021.
Good evening from Australia.
This festival is designed as a storytelling event. We are the storytellers, your hosts, who will take you through the many facets of Igem. But we are not the only ones talking, right, Carolina?
Yes, that's right. We have over 50 speakers joining us during the weekend. We will interact with them through interviews, discussions to showcase Igem through their perspective.
You might have noticed that all of the sessions are only 10 to 15 minutes long. We don't want to overwhelm you with a lot of content, so we've curated everything and kept it really short. All of this will be very fast-paced so that you don't get bored. Each day is only 3 hours long with 15 sessions. Make sure you can take a break every once in a while, and that you can easily focus your attention.
But this event is not just about watching a live stream. You will be able to meet and chat with all the speakers and characters in this story. How does this happen? After a session is done, right here in the live stream, you'll be presented with 2 options on your screen. You can either A, continue watching the live stream to see the next session, or B, you can join a live Zoom room with the speakers of the previous session.
This sounds super confusing, Guilherme. How will they keep track of all the Zoom links?
Yeah, indeed. But you actually don't need to remember any Zoom links. The amazing team of developers Nemanja mentioned created something really cool. Zishan, tell them more about it.
Well, actually, let's show it. We call this the choice countdown. Imagine we have just completed a session. Director, please run a test of the choice countdown. As you can see on your screen, on the left side there is a button A to stay in the live stream, and on the right side there is a button B to go to the Zoom room.
So you will have to make a choice and you have 10 seconds to do it.
But what if I missed it? What if I was in the toilet, or if I wasn't paying attention?
Actually, there's another thing that developers created. It's called the Live Zoom dashboard. If you scroll under the live stream, you will see it. Currently, only the watch party is there, but anytime something is happening in Zoom, it will show up there.
I actually hate joining Zoom rooms without knowing what's there, but this dashboard will actually tell you all the information before you have to join. So you can watch and hear a live feed from the room. You can see who the participants are, how long the meeting has run for, and how many people are on it.
But don't forget, the live stream here and the live zones are running in parallel, so you might be missing something in the live stream if you are in Zoom.
Don't worry, you can reply everything that's happening in the live stream almost instantly after it's completed. If you scroll down from the live stream, there is a box where you can watch previous sessions. This is getting updated right away. So even if you were away or shutting in the Zoom room, you can always come back and watch what you have missed.
Amazing! This festival is not just about the technical things. As storytellers, we will be telling you the story in 3 themes. So, 3 storytellers, 3 themes talking about the past, present, and future. When you see me on your screen, or when you hear me, or you see the color blue in the session, I will be showing stories about Igem, inspiring stories from past themes, lessons we learned. Then we have Carolina.
When you see or hear me, or see the color pink in the session, it's about experiencing the Igem journey this year. It's about what awaits you in this journey, trying to answer many questions you will have, and most importantly, introducing the members of our community who will guide you on this journey. And finally, we have Sishan.
So with me, when you see the color green in the session, we are imagining the future of synthetic biology and Igem. This is your future, the future you will build and pioneer using the experience and values from participating in the Igem competition.
Super exciting, super exciting. So, a little teaser of what's coming up today. Later on, I will tell you about the Igem roller coaster from the perspective of Igem alumni. Then, we will explore the crazy roller coaster of 2020 and what it was like doing Igem in the time of the pandemic, from the perspective of Igem HQ, an Igem team in Mexico, and an Igem team in the UK. Later in the day, there are 2 amazing, inspiring stories. A team's failure story and a story about a team who won bronze one year and then came back next year and won the grand prize. Finally, we hear an inspiring story about the Igem values.
On my side, I will introduce you to over 40 ambassadors who are champions of the Igem journey and can help you this year. Later on, I will be telling you about a new Igem competition launching in Latin America. But actually, most of my sessions come tomorrow, all about this year's competition and community. Stay tuned.
And I have 5 sessions today. We'll be exploring some of the Igem projects tackling COVID-19 last year with guests from the grand prize winners. Then we go into biosafety topics, explore the engineering cycle, the future of the lab, and finally the Igem entrepreneurial journey. Stay tuned.
Amazing! It's a whole day of activities planned, and the 3 of us are all over the world time zone. Zishan will be up all night in Australia. Sorry, man. I guess all of you are also facing time zone difficulties. And okay, I got it. I will stop talking. Nemanja, the director, is yelling at me again. Okay, please calm down. It's fine. I'm using too much time. We have to move to our first session of the day. It's a very special opening speech describing all about what Igem is. You, local people solving local problems all over the world using the power of synthetic biology. Let's get started.
Please welcome the Executive Vice President of Igem, Megan Lizarrazzo.
Hello, Igem 2021. Wow, have you all turned out? From Cork, Ireland to Nairobi, Kenya, from Mandi, India to Fukuoka, Japan, from Fargo, North Dakota to Cochabamba, Peru. After a terrible year for the world, one that is still going on, we are amazed to see that hundreds of teams have signed up to participate in Igem this year. 344 so far. It is just remarkable. Welcome to all of you. So I'd like to take a moment and have you pause and think about, why are you participating in Igem? What do you hope to get out of this experience? Do you want to learn lab techniques, work on a team, build a biological system, solve a problem in your region that needs to be fixed? Now, file that away, write it down someplace on your phone so that you can come back to it at the end of the year. Everyone has their own reasons they want to participate in Igem. But at the end of the season, what you will all get is a shared experience and core values. You'll hear more about these this weekend. This may not mean much right now, but as you continue your season, as you continue your careers, this will come to mean more to each of you. The people you'll hear from throughout this weekend could all tell you about their shared Igem experience. All you need to say are 2 words in a hushed whisper: WikiFreeze. While you're participating in the competition, you're doing so with your team. But then remember, there are over 300 teams out there going through that same experience. There's a definition of synthetic biology by Igem friend Megan Palmer that says that synthetic biology is a community, a field, and an approach. That's quite telling, don't you think? It's a definition that shows just how unique what we're doing actually is, that it requires 3 different components: a community, the people that surround you, a field, this new discipline, and an approach, a philosophy, a way of thinking. So community, check. That's what comes out of a group of people with shared experiences. What about the field? Well, let's rewind. Do you know why Igem started? Rewind 17 years. Igem was just getting started as a summer competition in 2004. Since then, it has gone from a small competition with 5 schools organized at a university to what you know today, the premier synthetic biology competition with over 300 teams from 45 countries around the world. 60,000 people have participated over the past 17 years. Igemers have gone on to create companies, to build synthetic biology programs at universities, to contribute to groundbreaking research, and more. We are, of course, at the beginning of yet another year that will bring hundreds of new projects and thousands of new Igemers, you all. In the very beginning, the purpose of Igem was to test whether applying engineering principles to biology in order to build systems was possible. Really, Igem was founded by 4 engineers, and they saw that biology was building astonishing systems better than anything human engineers could build. Like a houseplant, it can self-repair, self-replicate, you can cut off a leaf and it doesn't die. They asked, how can we learn to do that? How can we harness that? We're engineers. We think we can build that. And in order to test whether this was possible, they created Igem. Why create a student competition if you want to start a new field? Well, because they were surrounded by brilliant undergraduates who didn't have any preconceived notion of what was possible or not. So teams tried wild projects, they made parts, they failed a lot. They got inspired and wanted to do more. Igem kept growing and growing, and the field kept growing and growing. Over 17 years later, we see that yes, it is possible to build with biology, and in fact, there is now a whole field dedicated to it. So now that we have built this field, and the tens of thousands of people who are carrying it forward, now what is the purpose of Igem? It is to make sure that this field and all of the power that this technology holds gets developed everywhere. Igem is about local people solving local problems everywhere in the world. Last year, teams worked on bioconcrete tetrapods and bacteria that recycled phosphorus, photosynthetic microalgae, and firefighting foams from frog proteins, chronic inflammatory disease, and mercury poisoning. What do all of these projects have in common? They all address a problem that teams saw was affecting their homes, their neighbors, their area. It is not okay for this technology that we're working so hard on get developed only in the US or in Europe. It is not okay for us to work only on problems that Silicon Valley thinks need to be solved. Will the industry be made up of 2, 3 giant companies who solve everything? What happens if you live someplace where your problem isn't important enough to be solved? This is Igem's new purpose. It is to make sure that this field and all of the power that this technology holds gets developed everywhere by everyone. So how will we do this? Well, with new programs like Igem Leagues. This year we're piloting 1. Next year we'd like to have 5. With new technologies like video and remote participation. We got thrown into it last year, but it won't go away. It'll just get better. And most importantly, with you. It is up to you to make sure that this technology gets developed everywhere in the world. For the next few months, work hard and enjoy Igem. Then after that, remember Igem. And then most of all, do your part to make this a world that you want to live in.
Welcome back! As we said, this is all about you. This year, Igem counts almost 350 teams. So let's watch a message, a video from Igem 2021 teams. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Nemanja asked me to say that these videos were actually collected by an Igem team for a collaboration project. So all credits to Igem Nantes.
Ah! Bonjour, je m'appelle Quentin et je fais partie de Igem Paris.
मैं हिस्सा हूँ टीम आईजेम पेसर भोपाल का जो कि इंडियन टीम है.
Я участник команды Igem Moscow.
Γεια σας, είμαι η Σίλια και είμαι μέλος ομάδας Igem Athens.
Hola, yo soy Ana Paula y soy parte del equipo Igem México.
I'm Teil des Igem Teams Bonn.
Igem Calgary.
Denmark.
Equipe Igem Concordia.
Idea es Igem Festival 2021.
Nací en Zaragoza. Saludos desde España.
Hi, I'm Frédérica Pages et je suis dans l'équipe Igem Nantes.
Team van de TU Delft en ik heb er heel veel zin in.
Igem 2021.
I'm a part of team Igem ISER Tirupati.
That's the team from Igem Marburg.
Ujoimi Igem Stockholm.
Igem van Leuven.
Igem Brno.
Y soy parte del equipo Igem World México.
Sí, είμαι μέλος της Igem Θεσσαλονίκη.
Wir sind Teil des Igem Teams der TU Darmstadt.
Und des Teams Igem Hamburg.
Ich bin parte del equipo Igem World México. Namaskar.
Und wir sind von Igem Bielefeld.
That was amazing! Next up is a story about people who are the Igem champions of your regions. They are the Igem ambassadors. I am so glad to be coordinating this global team of Igemers helping you and your journey this year. Actually, Guillermo was one of the first ambassadors.
Yes, that's right. I was an ambassador in 2017 and I can see my hair getting gray.
Yeah, and the program has grown from just 5 ambassadors that year to over 40 this year. For teams watching us right now, you might have already had a chance to meet your ambassadors during the team calls this year, but just to bring a little bit of context for the audience. The Igem ambassadors represent and promote Igem and synthetic biology in their regions. They have experienced Igem and now work together to promote initiatives to expand Igem and collaborate with local stakeholders. Since I'm located in Paris right now, I had a chance to go out and talk to Dorothy about all this. Let's travel to a Parisian park. Hello everyone! Welcome to this session of the opening weekend festival, your regional champions, the Igem ambassadors. I'm really happy to have here Dorothy, who is the director of community engagement. And Dorothy, how are you today? I'm good and I'm full. Nice. We had a little picnic before this session. And well, Dorothy, you were ambassador in 2019, right?
Yes, I was, and so did you for 2020.
Exactly. And how was your experience as an ambassador?
Wow, I would say it was very different than I expected. There were two things I'd like to share. First is like we were actually in a Zoom working mode even before the pandemic, which kind of enabled us to talk with different people all over the world, just like in the way that I talked to Carolina last year. And also because of you are ambassador with that identity, teams will like naturally come to you and ask them questions, and many of them were the ones that you never thought about. So it was also a learning process for myself to go through these challenges together with the teams and develop a better understanding about the local cymbal ecosystem in our region.
And how have you seen that the program has changed during the years? Which difference have you seen?
Right, there were kind of like quite a few changes. At the very beginning, not know if you're aware of that, in 2006 we had an ambassador program. And Megan Lizarrazzo, the vice president of Igem, was one of the ambassadors back then. So did Reshma from Ginkgo. And they were mainly focusing on helping teams, like telling them what are the parts, how to assemble them, and work with them to tackle all kinds of like lab problem shooting, a lot of things like that. And in 2017, we switched the focus and revived the program and on connecting with alumni. So ambassadors are focusing more on creating more initiatives that could like have Igemers who have already graduated from competition keep working and contributing to the cymbal community. And when it came to 2020, everyone was facing the similar problem brought by the pandemic. We switch again. So the ambassadors are not only connecting with alumni but also focusing more on helping our current teams. I believe many of you, like 2021 teams, have already talked to our ambassadors in the coffee hours and like ask questions and have you listen to your concerns. We will have more such kind of events coming in the season. Just stay tuned.
Okay, thank you very much, Dorothy. And actually, right now we have a video from our ambassadors.
Hello.
Yassas.
Shalom.
Hey everyone.
Bonjour.
Ahlan.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Namaste.
Hello.
Hello.
Hola.
Hola.
Oi.
My name is
Abby.
Leandros.
This is Srishti.
My name is Sarah.
Yusuf.
Maluk Erikan.
Kavya.
Stephen Levy.
Erin.
Somadip.
I am Abdul.
Chin.
Cheeto Lord.
And I am an Igem ambassador to Europe.
And I am an Igem ambassador to Africa.
And I'm one of the Igem ambassadors to North America.
And I'm an Igem ambassador to Asia.
And I'm an Igem ambassador for Latin America.
Based in Egypt.
Based in Belgium.
In the United Kingdom.
Greece.
In Israel.
The United States.
In India.
In the United States.
The Philippines.
Brazil.
This is now my third year of participating in the Igem competition.
I participated to Igem in 18.
Back in grade 10 as a high school student.
Igem 2018 team.
Last summer as part of the MIT Igem team.
I still remember how nervous I was on the first day when I was going for the team Igem Born interview.
One of the things I love the most in the competition is,
you get to build these things together. It's always more fun with friends.
Late night wet lab sessions, last minute coding on the wiki.
And also taking pictures of people sleeping on my couch during the wiki freeze.
And it doesn't matter if you're 10 years old or 80 years old. You'll still probably find Igem fascinating.
So I just like to share the best Igem moment for me.
When our 2020 team won the Best Therapeutics Award.
that in the minute we stepped our foot in the venue, I've seen this beautiful, amazing variety of cultures like fireworks.
All the amazing team bonding activities we did. I was so excited to finally meet another person who knew all the words to CRISPR-Cas9, Bring Me a Gene, bum 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 bum.
I'll never forget when the results were announced at the Giant Jamboree and our project Odyssey won the Best Diagnostics Award.
Our project should aim to solve problems in our local communities.
So definitely one of the best things about Igem is the people who are also passionate about synthetic biology.
And I would say that the best moment was when everyone made it to the Jamboree.
I was quite surprised to see only 2 teams from the African continent participating.
As an Igem ambassador in Africa, we hope to increase the number of teams that can participate in Igem.
You know, Symbio is and Igem are little to not known in some sub-regions.
North America is a region with many institutions, but proportionally not many Igem teams.
I'm looking forward to increasing the number of Latin American teams participating in the competition.
Disseminating synthetic biology in our region, supporting teams.
So this is why I decided to become an ambassador this year and make Igem better known in Africa.
We'll be able to foster new Igem teams as well as promote Symbio in North America in general.
And many more projects and initiatives that we will be hearing about from the ambassadors themselves.
Best of luck to all you 2021 iGemmers, and I can't wait to see what you all achieve.
We are the 2021 Igem ambassadors. Yay!
We've had a great time
meeting and interacting
with a lot of you.
And we'll continue to do so
and do our best to help you have an
amazing Igem journey.
Let's build
a strong synthetic biology
ecosystem
all around the world.
All across the world.
All around the world.
All around the world.
Together.
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 Welcome back. So Guilherme, as one of the first ambassadors, what are your experiences of all this?
Oh, I have so many cool stories to share, but I would be sure that Nemanja would shut down the live stream if I start talking too much. So yeah, it was an amazing experience. I traveled to dozens of different cities across Latin America. I had the chance of starting Igem teams in places that never had an Igem team and actually meeting them during the Giant Jamboree in Boston. So it was an amazing experience to throw seeds in the wind. And now I have been seeing them in the past years flourishing and becoming trees, giving fruit. So it was an amazing experience, a life-changing experience for me, and I hope I had a little impact in the life of some of those young dreamers that became Igemmers and now are leading the Symbio scenario in their regions.
And now finally, we come to our first choice countdown. We talked about it in the beginning. You have a choice now. Continue watching the stream to hear a story from Guilherme.
We will be talking about the Igem roller coaster journey together with a few Igem alumni. Stay with me here.
Or maybe you can go to a live Zoom room to have a meetup with the ambassadors. Come with me to the Zoom room. Let's start the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey! See you later, Caro! Thank you for staying on. And now... Thanks for staying with me in the live session. And before we actually receive our next guests, we will watch a video from 2019 from Megan Lizarrazzo. Actually, Megan was an ambassador in 2006. I don't know if people remember that Igem had a first class of Igem ambassadors in 2006. So this is a speech that most people that experience the Igem competition already heard. And if you never heard it, if it's the first time, but you went through the Igem experience, you will understand what we will be talking about. So let's go.
You just signed up for the Igem team, and you had your first meeting with your teammates, and you're so excited. Then you get into brainstorming with your team, and you think, okay, this is fun. And then you start working on your projects, and you start to realize, this is harder than we thought. And then you get good results, and you get excited again. And you go through the season, up and down, and up and down, and up, and then wiki freeze. 7,000 Igemmers all around the world are working on their wikis at the same time. So how many of you went through this Igem roller coaster? Yes, hands up, hands up. So look around, keep your hands up, and notice that you all went through that together, right? Those on your team, but look how many hands are up. That shared experience, that is what makes Igem special. Part of what makes Igem special. And hopefully it was all worth it.
That was an awesome speech. I actually remember the first time I heard it back in 2014. It was the first giant jamboree. It was my first time abroad. There were thousands of people, everyone speaking a different language, everyone showing completely different projects, some stuff that I have never imagined. And I remember sitting with my teammates and watching this opening speech in 2014 and realizing that it was about me. I thought, this is exactly what I experienced. And then I started to realize that this is exactly what everyone in that room experienced. And this is what made us all Igemers. And this is what makes us such a wonderful community. And to talk about this, the Igem journey, the Igem roller coaster, I'll have three very special guests. I'll have Abril, that did Igem in Mexico, Giovanna from Amazonas, Brazil, and Mariana from Araraquara, Brazil too. So they will be sharing their very different stories, but in the end of the day, they are all the same. Hello, how are you doing? So I would like to ask, how was the experience like? Because you start here, as Megan you should always say, like you start here, if you have time and excitement, you start here, but then you start to have trouble in your lab and experiments failing. So how was this part of the experience? Because then you start to see that it's super exciting, but it's actually quite hard, right?
The responsibility amount that you have is not equal to the amount of experience you have. So they are very unbalanced. So you have to deal with a lot of stuff that we usually wouldn't. So it's hard for young people. But it is also amazing, I guess. The path you follow when you're in Igem it's really a privilege, because I don't think everybody in university would have as much of responsibility as we. I was talking about with my team about stories. We were remembering things, and someone remembered that in 2019 we were in lab for 24 hours. It was hard. We made a lot of mistakes, but can you see the amount of effort we put on this? So even though it was hard, I'm just saying that we were together for a goal. So I think in the end, it was worth it.
And something that is really nice is that you have a team, so you don't feel like you're alone, like, oh no, what I'm gonna do. It's like, what are we gonna do? So it is also an opportunity to be really creative and also to learn a lot, because you obviously learn a lot about science and synthetic biology, but you also learn how to communicate with people because you need like a good environment, because you're gonna be together a long time. So you learn that those things are also important, and I think Igem just gives you that opportunity and to grow. And the best part of growing is that you don't do it alone, you don't do it by yourself, you do it with your team.
I can say that it was one of the most interesting experience I have ever had, and it was I am completely sure that it is part of my personal and professional formation, and we have to go through a lot of stuff during our project's development, and many experiments going wrong. But when you present this in the competition and you see the others also presenting their results, and it is really worth it.
So I'd like to ask you, Giovanna, when I invited you for this session, I told you that I'd like to talk about your story of being at the heart of the world and very far from the world, because you were in the middle of the Amazon forest doing synthetic biology.
But I guess the very first big project Igem Amazonas had was because the government had a meeting with our PI and said, hey, we have a problem with mercury in the Amazon rivers. We need to do something. Can you guys do something? And then we developed a project about biodegradation of mercury, which is a really serious issue in Amazon and for indigenous people. up to today. So it was really. I hope we could bring something to this discussion. And about this Mercury project, biodegradation project, we also had human practices, very strong human practices in this project. So I think one of the biggest thing that we could give to Amazon wasn't really on the lab, was about having discussion about those things with very important people.
And I would like to hear how was your impression of attending the Jamboree? Because I remember very, very clear the first time I participated in the Jamboree. I have been in several of them. My first one was 2014. So yeah, I'm starting to get old. I remember very clearly how I felt, because on my first lunch, there was no place to have lunch. All the tables were taken. And I decided to sit with there were some students from another team. And I sit down with them, and then we start to have lunch. And I asked where they were from. And they were from Kazakhstan. And I remember very clearly this conversation, because like it's so far, it's completely different from my reality. And then I started to realize that they are very similar to me. They went through a lot of what I did. They were passionate about a lot of stuff that I was passionate about. And I felt part of this community. And it's a huge community, like 5,000 people that I don't know. I don't know who they are. I don't know anything about them. But I can sit down with anyone and have lunch and talk about synthetic biology. So yeah, I would like to hear, what was your impression the first day in the Giant Jamboree? How did you feel?
When someone asks me about my journey on Igem, I've always said that I have two favorite moments. My first one is when I entered the Heinz Convention Center for the first time, and then I walked through the corridor, and then I remember very clearly about that day. I looked to the right, and I saw a bunch of Chinese people, and then the other one clearly Latinos, and they were dancing. So it was really like a movie scene. And then you go to the corridor and you see a lot of different people, blonde people, very white people, and and then I would never be able to do that in other place. So definitely my first walk on the corridor in Heinz is a very special moment of my life.
One moment that is like in my heart is when Megan was giving the speech, the one you sent us. And all the lights were dark, all the teams were seated, and everything was just like, like the atmosphere maybe also, but everything was like incredible. And then she said, like, you are in this roller coaster journey, and you all start with an idea, now you're here, blah, blah, blah. And then my team, we were like really like a family. We just held our hands, and then I closed my eyes, and I think that is a moment in my life where I felt more grateful. Like I feel like everything was possible. And sometimes when I have hard times, I still like close my eyes and try to feel in that moment, because then I know like, okay, things can be hard, things can be difficult, but they won't always be hard. They won't always be difficult. So
very powerful message. What about you, Mariana? How was your experience of seeing this global thing going on?
So I imagine Igem very smaller than it really is. So I got impressed the time I arrived in Heinz. Seeing all that people from different places, I realized the size and impact of all of that. Everybody there doing science, and you feel so connected with that people for doing the same thing.
Yeah. I will tell a story that I never told in public. I don't remember what was the first presentation I watched, but I remember very clearly in 2014, I was 18, and I watched the Imperial College presentation. They were working with water treatment, and I loved their project. And I thought, oh my God, those people around me watching this presentation or doing those presentations, they are going to save the world. I had this feeling. Like I was 100% sure. Of course, maybe I was a bit naive. Maybe I thought the world was easier to be saved. I wasn't aware of all the problems out there. But I cried. I truly cried. I watched the presentation. The world is beautiful, and those people are making it more beautiful. So yeah, it's incredible to see and to feel this atmosphere and connect with all those teams. And hopefully, the people watching this session, they can feel a little bit of being part of this awesome international community. So I have one final question. So what is your message for the people that are beginning this journey and going through it for the first time?
If I could go back in time, I think I would say to me, and I would say to all of the people that are listening to us right now, enjoy the differences. I've learned so much with people that weren't biotechnologists as I was. I had, and I think I learned a lot with them, but I could learn more, because we are so different, and we when we build things together, it's so amazing. We have a story on our team about a programmer that entered in a year by curiosity to talk with us. He went to the meeting and to talk, and then 2 years later he was designing the genetics circuits for us, with us. So he almost did like 50% of the work. So yeah, I think I would say enjoy the difference, not only academic differences, but cultural differences. Because on standard path, if you go to a lab, you have to do almost by yourself. Of course, you have the other people to help, and you have your PI. But to work in a group like that, to work in a group like we do in Igem, it's very unique. It's very Igem-like.
I would say to see beyond science, because with Igem, yes, you learn a lot about science, but there are also many things that gives you the opportunity to learn, especially when you are in an engineering career that is not necessarily into, for example, human practices or something like that. I will say take that opportunity to go beyond, to see truly the impact of what you're doing, and not only to assume that your project is going to be interesting, but actually to listen to everyone, because everyone can bring something that is going to be useful for your project. And when you have something that is made of by everyone, I think that is beautiful, because it's not only, we scientists or future scientists that we're doing this. It's like we together, maybe society, humanity, I don't know how to call it, but we are doing this. And this is not only for a segment of the population. This is going to be for everyone. So I would say just listen to everyone.
Yeah, I think the message that I would say is don't give up. Don't be afraid to fail. The good times will be worthwhile. Be proud of each achievement and show everyone what you have achieved, even it seems small. Be sure that it's important for science, for other people to be inspired in what you have done.
What I would like to say from my side is that whenever you see people talking about this Igem experience, this Igem journey, this Igem pathway, this thing that you go through and then you become part of this global community and you experience something that everyone experiences, but it's very unique, it sounds weird. You don't understand this because you will only understand this after you leave it. So if this is your first time participating in Igem, I really hope you enjoy your pathway, you enjoy what's ahead of you, and I need to say, you will understand this message in a few months, and then you can rewatch this and see like, it was exactly what those people were talking about, because in the end of the day, we are all part of this super powerful global community. So thank you very much for joining this session. That was an incredible session, and here, actually don't know where the clock is on your screen, but you have a clock and you need to make a decision, and this is all about choosing pathways. You can stay with me and talk a little bit more about other stuff, or you can go to the Zoom room and talk with Abril, Giovanna, Mariana, and other Igmers about the Igem journey. You can share your story, you can hear more about their story if you click the link or you can stay with me and talk a little bit more about the Igem journey, but a very specific Igem journey, doing Igem in 2020, doing Igem in the time of the pandemic. So you don't need to press anything, you can just stay here, or you can go to Zoom, or yeah, I guess you already stayed. Yay! Okay, so to the next session. "2020 was a unique year. Humanity as a whole faced many challenges and many transformations, and the same happened with the scientific community. In this next session, I would like to invite some guests to talk about how Igem faced the challenging year of 2020. The Igem Foundation, the Igem competition had to adapt, and the Igem teams had to adapt to continue doing the powerful science we know Igem teams are developing. And to start this conversation, I'd like to invite Tracy, Director of Competition. We are in March. There is this new thing starting the world. No one knows exactly what's going on. How was Igem HQ on this moment, of this very important moment of human history, actually?
We started getting ready for the distribution, and we were testing equipment and getting plates ready, all these things in and ordered. And then 2 days later, we shut down the office. And Boston went into a 2-week lockdown, and we really hoped that it was going to be 2 weeks. And so we all closed down the office, shut down lab operations, and all started working from home. And it quickly became apparent that it was going to last a lot longer than 2 weeks. And it was, kind of really flipped everything on a head for us, because we were also used to, at that point, working together every day in the same office. Just like I imagine a lot of students were used to being together on campus and going to classes, and all of a sudden, everything kind of came to a standstill.
At this point, you had to make a decision, right? Everything was changing. Everyone was in lockdown. We were facing the biggest challenge of our time. And you made a decision to continue doing Igem. How was this decision process?
We wanted to try to keep Igem going. We didn't want to shut it down. And in order to keep it going, we realized we were going to have to make a lot of changes. Because again, students weren't on campus anymore. They were, like us, working from home. Really, the rest of March and through April, we had many, many meetings and discussions to really create a new set of medal criteria that had never existed before, so that teams could still achieve medals and achieve excellence without doing lab work.
And I know that you also worked on new concepts of doing Igem itself, new ways of developing a project. For example, the 2 phases project. How did this idea start?
If a team couldn't do lab work this year, maybe they wanted to continue their project and do the lab work next year. This idea of a 2-phase project was born, and the first phase was really meant to be focused on the design elements of a project and all the components of a project that don't involve lab work. There was a heavy focus on human practice work as well, and so it kind of ended up being a lot of modeling. We had more software written by teams last year than we ever had before, and so it was set up so that you could still have some sort of metrics of success and say, oh, hey, I want to continue this again next year and actually implement this into the lab. And so we have teams this year who are the second phase of those teams continuing their projects, and we'll be bringing them to the lab.
So thank you very much for joining, Tracy. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you, Guilherme, and good luck to all of the teams this year.
We don't want to talk about this year, this very unique and very important year in the history of Igem from an Igem perspective. Because in the end of the day, the people that were doing Igem in the time of the pandemic were the Igemers, were the Igem teams. And I have some guests to talk a little bit about their experience. My first guest is Alonso Flores. So you had the experience of doing Igem in 2019 and doing Igem in 2020. How did that?
So during the first months of the pandemic, everything was fuzzy. We didn't know what to do or what not to do. But talking with our team, we came to the conclusion that even though it happened or not, we were going to keep working on our project. Comparing the experience of going to Boston and being there in the Jamboree, compared to 2020, in which we weren't able to be there. We weren't able to be with our friends, with our team, and have the chance to meet in person other teams that we collaborated with during the year. Was kind of sad, but on the other hand, it was a really good experience because Igem was not experienced just at the end. I mean, yeah, on years before, Igem was a whole year experience, but compared to 2019, in 2020, I felt like I had more access to Igem or to people involved in Igem. Talking about, for example, the opening weekend festival, that was the first event in the year of the pandemic. That was a very good opportunity to learn a lot of different topics, meet new people from IGEM, after IGEM, and IGEM headquarters. And that was not the only event. What about the global meetup? What about the different meetups of the teams around the world? It was a experience full of new opportunities compared to 2019. I wouldn't say that it was better, but I will say that it was different.
And is there any specific memory that stands out? Something that when you will be like 90 years old and you have your grandkids, you will be like, in that during the pandemic we did this and that and that. Like, is there something very specific that you will always remember from this season?
Yeah, I do. It's Zoom meetings. Zoom meetings are my everyday, 24/7 during the pandemic. It was so much Zoom. I'm not kidding. We spent more than 10 or 12 hours on a day just on Zoom. It was crazy, but I'm gonna remember it for the rest of my life.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was a terrible year. It was a challenging year, but it's incredible what IGEM teams like yours achieved in this very challenging year for everybody. Thank you very much for joining. So I would like to introduce in this session another guest that I have today, and my next guest is Abby. Abby is an IGEM ambassador for Europe right now in 2021, and she is the instructor of King's College London IGEM team. I'd like to invite you to imagine that is March 2020 again. Where were you? Where was your team? What were you thinking in the beginning of March 2020, where everything changed?
So in the first week or so of March, we were just about finalizing our project design and project description. So we kind of had a pretty good idea as to what we wanted to do and what sort of lab work we were planning on doing. But obviously all of that had gotten disrupted. Alongside that, we were scrambling to find funding to try to convince our university to support us, and just basically looking everywhere we could to find a way to participate and to be able to ensure that we could cover the costs of registration fee. So we had all these immense IGEM stresses happening in the first week or so of March, and we were having tons and tons of team meetings, tons of brainstorming sessions, trying to get everything together. And then the pandemic hit, and they canceled exams, and it just kind of all happened within the span of like a few days. Everything seemed super uncertain, and a lot of my team members had to go back to where they were originally from, and that also applied to me. So as I am right now, I'm currently in the US, and I also had to fly back to the US, and I had team members scattered all across the world in a variety of different time zones. We had people in Australia and China and the States and all across Europe. So we were basically just scattered everywhere. And my co-team lead and I, Steph, had to figure out, okay, first of all, how are we going to manage to run a project when we have people all across the world? And also, how are we going to do our project? Because we had originally planned a very wet lab-based project. And so we had to kind of sort out exactly what we were going to do in terms of like the IGEM science side of things, as well as keeping our team together. So in March, I think we were thrown into this huge like just sense of complete uncertainty, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to get back into the lab. I think in March we were still like, oh, we might be able to maybe in June or July. We just have to wait until things settle down. Maybe it'll just take about a month or so, and then we can all go back and we can all just do IGEM as we would have done normally. and that did not happen, obviously. But we had both a sense of this might not happen at all, and a sense of, oh, we might be able to go back still. So it was just a huge period of feeling really uncertain and just like super out of control of everything that was happening.
Yeah, and how was this adaptation of, like, because you had the experience of doing Igem in 2019 and you did it during the pandemic. What did you need to change?
We basically just had to go back to the literature and then figure out what could be a potential alternative to what we were thinking of doing originally, and then how can we solve this problem in a way that's not only better, because we found that there was a lot of advantages in the system that we decided to use in the end. So it allowed us to, look back at the papers, look back at all the current research, and look at and see what could actually improve our original project design, and what's something that we could do given the circumstances that we've been kind of forced into. And so we were able to look at 3D bioprintable materials, and then as well as modeling those materials and how they might behave in a physiological setting, which was really exciting. It was a really fun thing to have done, to be able to look at kind of those interactions in a very dry lab way. And then we also realized that there's huge gaps in the knowledge regarding the protein that we wanted to use. So we thought, well, then we can do the dry lab work to further understand this protein. So we looked to structural modeling using GROMACS and things like that. So we just realized that there was gaps in the knowledge in the field that we could fill using dry lab. Allowed us to come up with a much better project design than I think we would have had originally, and also allowed us to work under the circumstances. And then in the social side of things, like Zoom and Google Drive became like our main go-to things. Like I think throughout the summer we would be on Zoom for hours every day, and I can definitely attest to the fact that Zoom fatigue is a very real thing. So just finding ways to make sure everyone was connected despite the geographical distance between us all, and also like the temporal difference. And we also took on more people because we thought like no one could get experience right now. Like it's a really hard summer to find internships and so forth. So we took on a few more people, and I think that made things a bit easier as well, just in terms of workload. And also having socials was something that was hugely beneficial to our team dynamic and into ensuring that we all kind of became friends and we were all having a good time, despite the fact that we were all super remote and isolated, because it allowed for us to just kind of detach entirely from Igem. I think as Igemmers in general, and also because we were working online, working from home, we find it really hard to take a break from thinking about Igem. It becomes very all-consuming. So doing sort of socials like this was a great way to detach and also just kind of hang out with each other as friends. I think doing something like that was a really great way to navigate some of the mental impacts of the pandemic as well, and also the feeling of loss that you aren't able to, interact with your teammates in person or do lab work together and kind of have that traditional working in the lab and like hanging out afterwards, or, working in the lab until super late. So, which was something that I experienced my first year, and something that I really wanted to ensure that my team was able to do this year, but in 2020, but that obviously didn't happen.
And I have a question that is a bit complicated, because I was very excited about the Jamboree, and in March I was thinking, okay, this will all be done and we will all meet together and have fun together and celebrate this whole year. But suddenly it was clear that it had to be a virtual Jamboree. So what was your and your team reaction to figure out, or to knowing that it had to be a virtual Jamboree?
I think everyone kind of saw it coming, just because of how bad the situation was getting. Also in the UK, the situation had gotten really quite bad, so we had kind of recognized that it just wasn't going to be feasible. I think a lot of people were quite sad because everyone wanted to go to Boston and be able to have that experience, because also I've told so many stories about what it was like when I went to Boston. So I think everyone was a bit sad, but kind of recognized that it was what was going to be feasible, and also because we did have people all across the world. We realized that it was going to be really hard to make sure everyone could come together and everyone could be in Boston if that was to happen in the end. But I think in the end we all accepted it, and everyone I feel like had a really great time in the virtual Jamboree. We also watched, a lot of us watched the big, the finale, together, the closing ceremony. So we were able to have some sense of, being able to kind of be there and watch the awards and everything. So it naturally wasn't the same, but we were able to some extent, recapitulate, some of those feelings of, watching everything together.
We talked about, imagine that you were 1 year ago. Imagine now that you are 60 years from now. You have your great grandchildren and you're telling them some story that probably they heard a billion times about the pandemic. What is the story from your Igem experience from last year that you will remember 60 years from now?
I mean, the whole summer in itself was really unforgettable. It was some of the best times, ever, because we had a really good time. My team, we were all really good friends, and we all became super close, and we spent a lot of it just laughing and having fun. So I would obviously be very nostalgic about this and tell everyone about it as I do now. I think the very best moment was when we won Best Therapeutics Project, and we saw. So we were watching. The camera to show our team was on my iPad, and it was really small and it was really laggy from what we were presenting, and so we had seen our video be presented earlier, or it was super random, the lag, and then we realized, oh, we actually won it, and we were all screaming and yelling, and it was really such a great moment because we worked super hard throughout the summer, and it was just a huge sense of accomplishment and pride, and that all of our hard work had paid off.
That's awesome. And you had this experience of doing Igem in 2019 and doing during the pandemic, and now you are supporting the King's College team again, participating in Igem again. What is the plan for this year? Because we are still not back to normal, right? So how do you envision the Igem season that is just starting?
Well, we're quite fortunate in that the UK has been really on top of their vaccination rollout. So we feel quite confident that we're going to be able to get back into the lab. We're doing a phase 2 project, so we're planning on doing the wet lab work for last year. So we kind of have to get into the lab. And also being able to help out as an ambassador and kind of helping to guide the European teams as a whole to navigate the unique circumstances of Igem 2021 is also quite exciting to me.
I have one final question, but of course you can add anything that you want to this conversation. What was your biggest surprise? Because we talked a lot about expectations, and I think we didn't have clear expectations in March because we didn't know what was coming, right? It's actually interesting to look back and think all the plans we made, and then we are still in the pandemic. So during this journey, what did surprise you the most?
I think what surprised me the most was the sense of community that I felt despite everything. We were still able to collaborate with a bunch of different teams, and those collaborations were they were quite strong. We were able to meet teams from all across the world. The Jamboree itself was still really exciting, the poster sessions and kind of being able to chat with people was still really great. I think that I was really surprised at the ability of headquarters to capture that feeling of togetherness that we feel when we go to the Jamboree in Boston, being there in person, being able to speak with everyone. There was a huge sense of that was still present in the virtual Jamboree and present throughout the whole summer. So I think that I was most surprised by the fact that despite it all, I still felt like I was doing Igem, and that was really great because that's something that I really loved. In 2019, when I went to the Jamboree, it totally affirmed my love for this competition. Going to the Jamboree, seeing everyone, I felt so inspired by some of the projects that I saw, and I was just, it felt like exactly where I belonged.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing your story. At the end of the day, it was a terrible year. It was very difficult, and it's very powerful to see what Igemers did, because Igem. In the end of the day, Igem is all about the Igemers make Igem, not the Igem HQ. So if we had Igem in the time of the pandemic, it's because the Igem teams decided to do Igem in the time of the pandemic. So thank you very much for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. I'm always keen to talk about this because it was a super difficult year mentally. Everything was super overwhelming, but having Igem was like having a constant and something that, you know, you could wake up and do every day, and that you kind of had that like to look forward to and know that like I'm working towards something, I'm actually doing something with myself. And that was super important. And I think a lot of Igemers who did it last year, I'm sure they can relate to that, because it's like having something that can ground you, even though it's super stressful. It's like, it's a stress that's not pandemic, political related. It's a stress that's like outside of those things. So yeah, I'm super glad to have been able to share my experiences. I think that doing so will like provide others with a sense of being able to relate to this, and I hope it inspires people who are looking to do Igem now or in the future years to recognize that you can still be really successful despite how the circumstances are impacting you, and you can do everything remotely, which I think is a very new thing that the pandemic has shown us.
That was an amazing session. It was very, very inspiring to hear so many great stories in a very difficult, in a terrible year, doing Igem in the time of the pandemic. And to introduce you, invite you for the next session, I'd like to pull my friend, or push? No, pull my friend from there. Zishan, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you? I'm having a lot of fun. I'd like to invite the audience to the next session, tackling global challenges, COVID-19 Igem projects. So there were so many different projects related to COVID during the 2020 year. And I'd like to invite two grand prize winning teams, Leiden and TS Taipei, to talk a little bit more about their projects and their experiences.
Or you can go to Zoom and talk with me, Tracy, and other cool people about some of the challenges they faced, you faced. You can share your stories and connect with them. And let's start the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's go!
This idea is what inspired us to create Mopbox.
This is why we, Team Igem Leiden, developed Rapidemic.
嗨，大家好，我是工程君。为了完成病毒检测这项使命
You're at home and your family member feels sick.
Best of all, you can do your testing at home.
In order to trick the virus, we display the lung receptors on different carriers that we created.
Our model aims to quantify the PUFA produced by our probiotic, as well as
the core of the project is a multivalence detecting device called.
Today I'm joined by a lot of people. We have the TAS Taipei team. They were a high school team. And we have the Leiden team, which is the overgrad team. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. I can't wait to start talking about your project. So let's dive right in. So I'll give the stage to Tyne and Eugene, and you can start telling us about the amazing Leiden Rapidemic project.
When we started our project, the COVID-19 pandemic had just reached the Netherlands, and our university closed. And the government started implementing methods to control the outbreak. And we quickly learned that the testing methods had their drawbacks. PCR testing became available almost instantly, but it required expensive and extensive equipment. And because of that, samples needed to be sent to a laboratory. If you had symptoms and you chose to get tested, then you needed to wait for 1 or 2 days before finding out if you were actually ill. And obviously that caused a lot of stress. So this led us to developing Rapidemic, a modular test kit for disease detection. What makes the kit unique is that the bulk of the product can be made in advance and then can be stored for a long period of time until an outbreak occurs. And when this outbreak happens, then very little needs to be done to make it pathogen specific. So you just need to add primers for the new disease, and then in a very quick amount of time, you can make it fit to that disease and detect it. And so I'm going to show you an animation which shows exactly how this works. So first, you get these amplicons, as you can see, which are made by the RPA reaction. And then afterwards, so here, more and more of these amplicons are made. And these amplicons have what is noted as an nickase recognition site. So the nickase makes a nick. And then strand displacing polymerase attaches the strand, and it reforms the strand, cleaving off this GQ site. And the GQ is a short sequence of DNA that can fold up. And then when it's combined with hemin, it can catalyze an oxidation reaction. And so if there's if the sequence of interest is inside the solution, then a color change occurs.
So as most of the 2020 teams can probably tell you, there was kind of one big hurdle that kind of went over everything and caused quite a few challenges. And I'm of course talking about the pandemic. So this kind of caused us to need to adapt our project quite a bit. So first of all, it was important for us to look if we could get any lab space for our project. Luckily, we were able to secure 4 weeks of lab time from our university for a limited amount of team members. Next to this, it was also, of course, quite interesting to have everything moved online. While you would normally meet with like the public for public engagement events and meet with stakeholders for explaining your project. That was all online, making it a bit harder. But luckily, in the end, we were able to overcome these challenges, leading to our project being selected for the grand prize, which was truly amazing. We were able to secure a pandemic-safe place to follow the jamboree and attend the ceremony. And even though there was no hugging allowed, I'm sure you can see that we were able to celebrate the win appropriately still. Other than use this project for the Igem competition, we've also taken it into a couple of different directions. So first of all, we have filed for a patent. This describes our novel detection technique. Next to that, we are also working on a paper describing the same technique. This is currently still in a pre-published stadium and will be updated with new findings before we hope to publish it. And lastly, we have entered into a local entrepreneurial competition called Gulliver, which gives out money and resources to innovative new startups and projects. And this got us to the second place, lending us office space for 6 months to work on our project. So in the future, we plan to actualize our project into a product and bring it to the market in form of a startup. We currently have a couple of team members still working on it, on ironing out the last kinks of our technique and figuring out how it could be mass produced. And for this, we have help of experts, which we actually first got into contact to during the competition. So on behalf of the whole team, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to talk about our project. And I hope you all have an eventful year of Igem ahead of you. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's always, firstly, congratulations once again. It was a highly successful year, and I love it when Igem teams go on to, it's really cool because 2020, this was the first iteration of this project, of course, right? And in such a short period of time with so many challenges and hurdles, like you said, you only had 4 weeks of lab time?
Yes, 4 weeks in total.
4 weeks in total, yeah.
We were given 2 weeks, so we totally adapted our plans for doing like the basis of our project in those 2 weeks. And then eventually we were able to secure 2 more weeks. And in those weeks, like only 4 people of our team could go into the lab. But we planned out everything beforehand, like every little thing or everything.
Super meticulous, yeah.
All planned out beforehand. So that made it kind of, super efficient.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was really lovely. And we move on to another grand prize winner, the high school grand prize winner from 2020, TAS Taipei, Wilson and Kelly. Thank you guys again for joining us. And we'd love to hear more about your viral spiral project from last year.
a quick summary of our virus spiral project is that the goal that we essentially set out to achieve is to create a viral detection platform that is simple, fast, and accurate. And to achieve this goal, we employed a bioanalytical technique, which you now know as RCA, also called rolling circle amplification. And after selecting this technique, we made numerous modifications to it, from the removal of buffers to the design of specific virus probes and universal primers, and specifically the SynBio aspect, which is the selection of key enzymes, which allowed our system to enable direct RNA targeting of the virus, a pH-based colorimetric model, which means you can just look at the color of your test tube to see if you have the virus or not, and also to be able to run our reaction at room temperature. So we created a hardware which allowed us to enable point of care viral sample collection and nucleic acid purification. So that's really just prepping the sample before our RCA test. And we also created a software tool to be able to obtain quantitative data from the color that is shown from our test tube results, and also a model which can help differentiate different viral loads between patients simply through an analysis of the quantitative results that we got from our software tool, which from a human practices standpoint is very important to know people's infectivity level.
The one question I do have was, how much time did the Taipei team have in the lab?
Yeah, so we had online school for, I think, close to a month. And throughout that time, we just chose this project actually. So we really used that time to get the orders done, to get the activities, the outreach events all planned, and also to write up protocols and everything so that the minute if we were able to get back into the lab, we would be able to directly go straight into the project without any obstacles. So that time also really helped us provide some organization and structure to our project. Yeah.
Some of the outreach initiatives that you were planning, I know you won the Taipei team won the award for the best education initiative. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about that.
Yes, so then the education, we mainly focus on spreading SynBio to people in our school and also people outside our school. And since for me, I came from local school, and I know that for SynBio, local schools have less of an access to some genetic biology. So then I went back to my old school through connections, and then we teach the lower schools there. We teach the lower graders there the basic principles of synthetic biology, and it's really cool to see how they perceive it. And then since they know about COVID-19, so it's really easy for them to connect the dots and then learn the information.
Yeah, okay. And is the project being continued in 2021, like this year? Is the kit being further developed, or a new iteration of the kit, or is there what are some of the future goals for this project?
So we sadly didn't continue our project. Rather, we decided to share the methodology of our project through our Igem presentation video and wiki, and we also plan on publishing a paper soon. And I think the goal of this is to really just to throw our project out there for anyone to develop, not to monopolize on anything, but we're really trying to get people, anyone who's interested, to help facilitate a process that can help better diagnosis of viruses.
Okay, amazing. All love open source science. That is the end of our session. Thank you to Wilson, Tyne, Eugene, and Kelly for joining me today. Really excited to. I really enjoyed going through the wiki and hearing your presentations. Thank you to Leiden and Taipei. That was a really great session. So now you guys have two options. You can stay on for a conversation in the Zoom room, or you can go and join me for the next session, which is Safety and Security, SynBio Beyond Containment, and continue watching the stream. So, time to make a decision. The countdown starts now. Let's go! All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you for staying on for the next session of the live stream. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to tell you a bit more about Igem Safety and Security. So Igem is really unique in our comprehension and thorough approach to synthetic biology. With our world-class safety and security program, we really lead the field by fostering an environment of mindful and responsible work. Now, let's watch a video by Piers Millett. He's the Igem Vice President of Safety and Security.
Hi everybody, we're super excited to be sponsoring some teams this year. We're going to sponsor up to 5 teams to work on applied safety and security issues. More details coming very soon. We're going to post them on the Igem Safety and Security Hub and on the Igem sponsors page. Have a look. We look forward to finding out what you can do.
The session today is Biosafety and Biosecurity, SynBio Beyond Containment, and I'm joined by Todd Kukin, Senior Research Scholar at North Carolina University, and is also managing the new Igem Special Prize for Best Sustainable Development Impact. Hi Todd, thank you for joining us today. We've recently made an argument that we need both technical and policy progress to bring synthetic biology beyond containment and fully realize its potential benefits. Let's start by questioning the underlying assumption there. Do you think it's possible for SynBio to be safe, secure, and outside containment?
The short answer is yes. Of course, the details matter. And so what we found, particularly in the policy world, is that talking about things in the abstract is usually not very helpful. And so obviously, even if you just look at all of the various Igem teams, they're working on just a plethora of different types of applications. And so the application is really going to matter in terms of the issues around, beyond containment, right? So for instance, like if you're talking about releasing a living organism, right, out into the environment, that's going to have very different issues associated with to be able to evaluate sort of its safety and its impact on the environment versus, say, a food product that might have been made using a synthetic biology technique or some product that was the result of a synthetic organism that produced a particular component of that food product.
If you had the power to get one additional person to be working on a technical or policy problem in biosecurity, what would you ask them to work on?
So I think so I'm an environmental scientist by training, right? So this question of biosecurity to me is always complicated and complex from an environmental standpoint. Most of us in the environmental community believe that, healthy ecosystems are what enable, right, healthy humans and sort of a healthy planet. Right, and that this respect for nature is quite important, and that it should be risen to a level that we treat sort of the, I would say, typical biosecurity related topics, right, which people typically think about, like bioweapons, for instance, right, or the release of some, for instance, pandemic virus, right, that has been, altered in some way. I would argue, right, that we are too quick to sort of go into that biosecurity sort of framing, as opposed to looking at sort of just very straight, almost basic environmental concerns, right? Even this COVID-19 pandemic, right? The narrative, of course, is sort of trying to force us into this came from a lab, right? As opposed to, well, it actually came from the environment, and it was human sort of interactions with the natural world, and I would argue sort of a disrespect for the natural world. And so my sort of reading and thinking about biosecurity is actually more connected to your previous question, right? Which is this beyond containment. And how do we make sure that when we're, developing these new tools and applications that can have tremendous benefits for the environment as well, that we're thinking about all of these ecological and environmental interactions that are going to occur, and how do we make sure that we understand what those interactions are going to be, and that we really think about how we might be able to manage those potential impacts, both positive and negatives, to make sure that we're both respecting the environment, but also not creating additional problems that would then, in essence, sort of move into that sort of atypical biosecurity framing.
What are some, initiatives that make you feel hopeful?
Well, Igem has been making me feel hopeful for almost 15 years now that I've been involved in the competition. The other thing that's making me feel hopeful is the expansion of actors, right? And actually the expansion of the ideas of what we're thinking about. I actually do think that synthetic biology as a whole, in a way, is forcing us to kind of reevaluate our relationship with nature, right? Because we are talking about, in the abstract, right, creating new life or creating new organisms, or really sort of altering the natural world with human hands, right, using engineering for a purpose. And that is really making us rethink what our relationship with nature is, and what it should be or what it could be. And so what's making me hopeful is the expansion of conversations that are beginning to happen in the last few years with groups like the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, right, the broader conservation community, but also the broader policy community that, despite our excitement for synthetic biology, are still not that familiar with what's actually going on, despite its breadth across the world. And so those conversations will become more and more critical in order for us to collectively, as a global community, really talk about how we might want to use these tools moving forward, particularly if we're talking about beyond containment or outside the lab in the natural world.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Igem has been keeping you hopeful for the past 15 years. What role do you want Igemers and the Igem community to play in this?
So I think there's a couple. So one is the outreach, right? So part of the purpose and the reason behind the human practices component, right, of the Igem competition is for Igemers to get outside the lab, right, to interact with the world in which is going to potentially be receiving, right, all of the great work that they've been doing, right? But in order for you to be able to create sort of, the technologies and the sciences that we all hope are going to help change the world, right, the world has to be able to participate in that with you. And so what's been making me hopeful is how Igemers have been sort of embracing that notion, right? Embracing that idea of going out and talking with people, embracing the notion of responsible innovation by having feedback back into their projects to constantly make them better for the world, and taking all of the various different sort of, ethics and philosophies that might be different than your own, and trying to incorporate that into the design of your applications. Yeah. So that makes me hopeful. It also makes me hopeful that Igemers are actually trying to solve the world's problems that people in my age and older sort of help create.
Are there any mistakes that you're worried the Igem community might make?
I think I wouldn't call it a mistake. I think it's maybe a word of caution, right? And
a word of caution, okay,
right? And it's one word, I think, right? It is hubris, right?
Yeah.
It's this idea that we as humans think that we can control and manage the environment or manage life. Living things, particularly when we're talking about them beyond containment, that are going to be interacting with the natural world, I would argue are uncontrollable. Now that doesn't mean, right, that you shouldn't use them or that they're going to cause damage in some way. But we need to come with a sense of humility when we're talking about engineering life and putting that out into the natural world that has an unlimited number of variables that it's going to be interacting with, which I think sometimes is out of the typical thinking of how engineers think, right? But if you talk to ecologists, right, that's the world we live in, is sort of this unbounded interactions of life that are happening. And so my caution is just to come to synthetic biology and come to your projects with humility and to understand that you are not ever going to have complete control over what you're doing. And so that means you need to take care in terms of what you want to do with these applications and wonderful ideas that you're coming up with before you sort of just go forth and put them out into the environment.
The last question I'd like to ask is, you've done a lot of work at the interfaces between like do-it-yourself biologists and government and synthetic biology and conservation groups. What are some of the misconceptions these groups have about each other?
So I'll split it in two. I'll start with the conservation community. I don't think that it's necessarily misconceptions. It's that they haven't been talking to each other, right? And so, you know, and that's been, I think, a real big push in the last number of years by folks like Kent Redfer and the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, is to try to, in essence, connect those two communities to understand what the other is doing, what the other needs, in order to hopefully be able to harness the power of some of this science and technology for the right reasons. You know, so just like human practices where you need to go out and listen to the community, so too is if you're thinking about, you know, developing an application for, say, for an environmental purpose or for a conservation purpose, you need to talk to conservationists, right, to understand what it is they really need or what the problems are that they're trying to solve, and then try to see if synthetic biology is the answer to that problem.
Yep.
In terms of the do-it-yourself biology community and government, I think the main misconception goes back to that original sort of question, or the second question around biosecurity, right? The misconception has always been that you've got these sort of strange individuals working in their garages, right? That are biohackers that are trying to create the world's next deadly virus, right? And the reality is so far from that truth, that what we've found is once you bring in policymakers, right, or biosecurity experts or biosafety experts into a community laboratory where they can see what they're actually doing, they can see the protocols they've put in place, and that they can see that safety and ethics, right, are at the core of their actual mission of what they're doing, those misconceptions can disappear. Yeah. And so again, I think it's similar to the conservation community where it's a lack of interaction between those groups that are creating some of those misconceptions. And so our hope is that, you know, by connecting those two worlds or multiple worlds together, they can hopefully see the benefits and work together in order to deal with some of the very real concerns around safety and security, but also to harness the potential that, for instance, community labs can bring by bringing new people into the world of science and technology.
Yeah. And I think, a point I always keep telling myself is science is incomplete without communication. And I think that's really important for this exam. Todd Hukin for that really great session. So you guys have two options again. You can stay on, you can break on, you can join a Zoom breakout room and ask Todd any questions, or you can join me, you can continue watching the live stream and join me for the next session, which is Engineering Biology Design, Build, Test, and Learned. Countdown begins now. Countdown begins. Design, build, and test and learn in Igem. That's really exciting. I wonder what that means. I think it's an important skill to know. It's an important skill to understand. All right, let's dive right into engineering biology, design, build, test, learn cycle in Igem. Well, today we are joined by 3 people, Varsha, Alejandro, and Renee, and we're going to talk about engineering in synthetic biology, the design, build, test, and learn cycle. So SynBio is often described as an approach which uses engineering principles to develop biological systems, and therefore the engineering of a biological system or a bacterial organism is the central goal of any Igem project. So Varsha, I was wondering, what exactly does that mean? What is engineering biology?
Okay, so engineering biology is basically using engineering principles while building your whole biological system. So as Alejandro and Rene will take up the engineering cycle later, it is to follow the streamlined process of design, build, test, and then learn from whatever you've done so far, and then reiterate the whole cycle again and again. So why do we need to follow these engineering principles in biology? Is because when you take up especially synthetic biology or molecular biology projects, you do see that there is a lot of things that are going on that we are completely unaware of. It's at molecular level. There are a lot of factors that we cannot account for. There are a lot of things that we have no idea of what's going on. And which is why just following the engineering cycle will give us this smooth process into like solving little by little, understanding more about what is happening with the system that we're trying to design, and to find out, are we heading in the right direction? Is our system doing what we desire of it?
Yep, makes sense. And I'll let Renee and Alejandro introduce themselves first, and then they can talk a bit more about the engineering cycle.
So I'm Renee. I'm a PhD student in Marburg, Germany. And I've been involved in Igem since 2016, and now I'm supervising the Marburg team. Typically, you start with designing your first constructs, for example, and let's just take the example of a single promoter. So let's say you would design a single promoter and build it in a lab or clone it. Afterwards, you would test this specific promoter, for example, for a certain function, what you would expect. And you can do that in different ways with different reporter genes. That's basically the first half of this engineering cycle, that you design something, build it in the lab, and then it comes to the testing phase where you would measure something as an output of your system.
Thank you, Renee. I'm Alejandro. I've been involved in Igem since 2010 with the Valencia UPB teams, and now I'm a member of the engineering committee. And so picking up what Renee was saying, we have a design about a promoter. We went to the lab and built that. We had the DNA ready. We put it into our chassis, and then we decided a way of measuring and trying to assess the performance of that construction. And so now we have enough information to try to learn about this construction and this build and test part about our system, so we can take that into account and relate to what was the idea of our design in the first place. If necessary, and it will be necessary, to go on again to the design phase, maybe change something, redesign, take some other stuff into consideration that we hadn't at the beginning, and go on with the cycle again. So for each part of the cycle that we are mentioning, there are different options that we can, or approaches that we can take. For example, in the learn part, now it's very fashionable to talk about machine learning techniques and modeling. We can, for example, understand models of the parts and estimate values for the parameters of the parts. And then we can go back to the design and put that into a mathematical model, for example, and then have new ideas of how to build this part in the lab.
I was just going to say, it's really so you have the design cycle with design, build, the engineering cycle, design, build, test, and learn. And it's really, after that, once you repeat the cycle, it's redesign, rebuild, retest, relearn.
It will not happen that at least in my experience, is it almost never happens that in the first run of the cycle you get the project working as you were expecting, as Barsha was mentioning before. To change the example to another level, for example, imagine the human practices approach to try to see if the project has an impact on society or on your community. Sometimes, and what is really interesting is to take the result of the project or the partial result of the project out to the society and try to get some feedback from the society. This paradigm can be used at many different levels of complexity and hierarchical levels of your project. So take that into account.
Definitely. And I also wanted to come to 2018 when I was a participant of Igem with the UNSW Sydney team. And I was actually poster neighbors with Renee and the Marburg 2018 team. And what I wanted to ask, because Marburg 2018 won the overgrad grand prize, and Valencia 2018, which Alejandro was part of, won the undergrad grand prize. So I wanted to ask both of you, clearly the design build test cycle worked quite well for both your teams. How was the redesign cycle like? So you finished the competition as grand prize winners. What's the next step in the redesign cycle?
So actually, in our case, there was quite heavy redesign in the project, because I don't know if everyone is familiar with our project, but back in 2018 we were working with Vibrio nitrogens, which is the fastest growing living organism in the world, but it's also very not established in the field of synthetic biology, and we had to learn a lot for our genetic constructs and for our designs or experiment designs in the beginning. So in the beginning, we failed a lot and had to redesign a lot. So for example, just to pick out one very specific example, when we cloned the first biobricks into Vibrio, we realized that something is not working, and in the end we just found out that the origin of the Igem backbone had one specific mutation, which makes it hard for Vibrio to work with that origin, and we fixed that and redesigned the experiment with that, and then this was the game changer of the project. So we clearly showed that, like, by redesigning one specific sequence, we were able to run this design build test cycle again, and therefore get more promising results.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's really interesting to learn. Alejandro?
In our project in Valencia UPB 2018, we were constructing a machine that was able to have all the functionalities of a lab with the size of a microwave, or it was bigger than we thought at the beginning. And the idea was to design with the software, and then the machine was able to construct the genetic parts and the devices that you wanted. And at the end, you will have a tube with your cells with the desired genetic circuit or genetic part. And we took that to labs and asked them, when it was more or less ready, and asked them, do you like this idea? Would you use it? What do you think we can change from this? What is interesting? What is not useful? And we made a survey of that to different public, for example, and then we went to schools and used this to help the people to develop some bioart. They were painting with colored bacteria that we were making with our machine. And so we did an exploration of different possibilities in the human practice area. And then we came back to the project, and we had to redesign several parts of the original design to try to fit and arrange those issues that were raised by the people. So again, the cycle was, we were trying to cover all the steps in the cycle, and at the end to take into account what is coming from the cycle. Is what makes your project successful, because at the end you had an initial idea and you have the results of the project, and you want those to match, and the way to do it is following the engineering cycle.
Yep. And what's another really important thing is like when I first heard the engineering cycle, my mind directly went to like the science, right? The synthetic biology of the project, but the human practices component is as important. That is as important in guiding the direction of the design, build, and test and learn. Awesome. These are really good examples. So if you want to learn more about the engineering committee and how they can help teams and get their advice, you can join the Zoom room with them right now, or you can stay on the live stream with Carolina, and where she's going to talk about the really brand new Igem Design League. Carolina, tell us more.
Hey Zishan, thank you very much. Exactly, so in the next session I'll be talking about this new project, the Design League, which is going to be which actually already launched in Latin America. So it's a really nice session. So if you would like to hear more about this, stay with me in the live stream. So let's start the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's begin.
Hello everyone, welcome to this session where we are going to be talking about something that you may have been hearing during the last months, hearing some rumors and so, but finally all your questions are going to be solved. We are going to be talking about the Igem League, Design Leagues. So for this, our guest is Camilo, who is leading the project of the Igem Design Leagues in Latin America. Hello Camilo, how are you? It's really nice to have you here. So, fun facts, I know Camilo since a lot of years ago. Maybe in my first Igem back in 2012, I saw him at some point in the lab. But, well, Camilo, please, let's start. Let's solve the questions of our audience. Tell us, what is Igem Design Leagues?
Sure. So, as you may have heard on the previous call, we are focusing on this new Igem competition called Igem Design League, which is part of its own group of new leagues that Igem is currently exploring. So we decided to, being from Mexico, from the Latin American region, we started thinking about how we could bring more opportunities to this region. Specifically, how can we allow more people to participate in the Igem competition? And that's basically how we started talking and how Igem Design League was born.
And so why actually was it decided to start in Latin America?
Right. So I guess it's kind of a serendipitous moment. Igem has been looking at this idea of how can we have more participants that enjoy of the Igem experience. So going through all of the excitement of being part of a project, solving a local problem through synthetic biology by local teams. And it was at this moment that we had some inner chats within the Igem Foundation, fellow ambassadors and coordinators. And it just seemed like Latin America was the best point to start, mainly because we already had a lot of people mentioning how they would like more opportunities in Latin America, but also a large part of the team was already participating and coming up with initiatives. So I'm guessing it was both a bit of luck and also a long time that the Latin American region has been looking into how can they participate more.
Which opportunities do you see in Latin America in general for the development of synthetic biology?
There's a huge amount of possibilities. And I was just talking the other day with one of our advisors, Todd Quicken, and this idea of, okay, it's interesting because we normally see Latin America as this place. It's a common joke between biologists that Latin America is such a mega biodiverse region. But then again, I think that we all kind of know that. We learn that in junior high school, and even during our undergrad. But I'm guessing that one of the things that we are missing is how do we better use all of that biodiversity? I mean, there is not such thing as genetic device that we just go in and then use in synthetic biology. It actually comes from a natural process. So imagine of all of this great potential that we have sitting in our region, but we are still trying to figure out how are we going to better understand it. For example, go and sequence it, then synthesize it, and I don't know, just thinking about all of the possibilities and potential that it's within our region, and it just gets me very excited. So I'm guessing that through the design approach, we can actually dedicate more time to trying to understand a local problem and going into all of this mega biodiverse region and finding some of the solutions in there.
Yeah, I mean, it is really, really exciting. Even the first time I heard about the Design League, I think it was from you actually. I got like really excited about this opportunity. But what would you tell like people or students? Like, why should they participate?
We are launching this Ibm Design League not just as another copy of the current competition. It actually has some main key differentiators. So for example, as I was mentioning, the design part is that for this year, we are focusing on teams designing their projects, but not focusing on the build and test stage. This is a way that we found that we could avoid teams focusing on finding a lab, finding the materials, the reagents. So this should reduce a lot of the stress that participating in Igem would sometimes come from within the region. And this to say that we have listened to what some of the concerns of the Latin American teams and new teams have been over the past couple of years. Now, we're also focusing on the education experience approach, meaning that we are also aware that there aren't that many, let's say, advisors willingly supporting local teams. So many teams would sometimes get to this stage and couldn't find the right help until they went deep into the community and starting other teams for assistance, which was great. But for this instance, we are kicking off their synthetic biology learning experience by providing them with Igem Academy, which is an educational tool that we will be providing for teams this year, and that I'm sure Maria, who is our coordinator of this area, would be interested in talking about.
Yeah, and actually for that we have a video that she prepared for us where she talks more about what is Igem Academy.
Hola, this is Maria, and I'm the coordinator of education in the Igem Design League competition. My journey in Igem started in 2013 when I was a high school student back in Manaus, a city in the Amazonas state in Brazil. Like many of you, I was and I am a dreamer. I dreamt about the potential of my own region, the Amazonian region, and I was inspired by the power of biology and nature. Driven by this passion, we co-founded the first synthetic biology laboratory in the middle of the Amazonian rainforest in Brazil. Throughout years doing Igem, we designed new technologies to overcome local problems. It was the people, our people, local people, getting inspired and learning how to design with biology. We want to facilitate the learning and educational experience in synthetic biology because we believe there are the people like you, people like me, that can design the technologies of the future. You are the bioengineer of the future. The Igen Academy is a digital platform to provide you world-class education in synthetic biology and design. Our motivation is to empower the next generation of Latin America talents and leaders. We believe education is crucial to make synthetic biology a dream that's possible and accessible to Latinos and Latinas, and to address the regional challenges that we face. We are expanding the boundaries of education by building connections between global leaders and emerging talents in Latin America. Talents just like you. The Igen Academy goal is to kickstart your education by providing a platform that you can grow and learn one activity at a time. through inspiring lectures and digital activities, you will meet and engage with renowned leaders in the field of biological engineering. Our lectures are different. I'm sure you have endless access to videos and resources on the internet. Instead of the traditional system, we want to create videos that you can binge watch, just like Netflix or Masterclass. What is unique from our approach is that global leaders are sharing their passions and visions to you, and that you can engage with them. They will be available to you. Through the Igen Academy, you'll have access to our custom-built educational videos. We will also host workshops, live Q&As, and hands-on digital activities so you can learn cutting-edge software and develop skills on the main topics of the Igem Design League competition. To help you navigate our platform, we are providing a handbook with customized homework and assignments specially designed to you. Powering the Igem Design League competition with education means providing you the resources so you can catalyze and drive new solutions to local problems. You will also build connections. You will join the Igem community and you will meet regional leaders, ambassadors, students, and dreamers just like yourself that are helping to accelerate the synthetic biology ecosystem in Latin America. And we will do that by speaking a lot of English, Espanol, and Portuguese. We are so excited to design with biology in this new Igen competition and to learn by designing through the Igen Academy platform. We dream about the potential of Latinos and Latinas designing and learning with biology. Let's make this dream reality together.
Well, this is definitely something super exciting. I'm sure that it will be an amazing experience for a lot of people, but I'm sure that many people in our audience right now is wondering, like, will it be launching in other regions? Can you tell us about this?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we are piloting this design league in Latin America, but we are also, right at this moment, there are several teams working within Igem to also listen to what other regions have got to say, what they would like to see of within the Igem competition, or whether the development of a new league for their region or country. So for anyone out there who would be interested in sharing their ideas or being a part of the conversation, I would recommend that they get in touch with us. And let's see how we can get synthetic biology out there to more people.
Exactly. So if you have questions and so, remember to join later the Zoom room. But well, Camilo, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you to our audience that is watching us, and see you in the next session. Bye-bye. Well, as you can see, this project is amazing. I am really excited to see how is it going to keep going during the next months. So if you have still some questions about this, you can definitely join the Zoom room to talk more and ask all the questions that you may have. Or you can join Sishan, who is going to be talking about the future of the lab, automatization and DNA synthesis. So Sishan, can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Hi, Caroline. Yes, I've got a super exciting session about the future of the synthetic biology lab. Will robots take over? We don't know yet, but we're going to be joined by Professor Douglas Desmo from the Boston University, and we're going to talk a bit about synbio, robots, automation, and DNA synthesis. So now, let the countdown begin. 10,
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Let's go. All right, hi everyone. Welcome to the next session of the Igem Opening Weekend Festival, DNA Synthesis and Assembly, the future of the lab. Now, throughout history, we have been taking steps towards an imagined future, synthetic biology without DNA manipulation. In this future, engineers wouldn't be concerned with taking with samples and assembly because they could synthesize their designs entirely. Now, I want to invite Guilherme to talk a bit more about DNA synthesis and Igem as well as IDT. Guilherme.
I think everyone is quite tired of me. When I'm not a host, I'm a guest. But hello, guys, again. I have a nice story that makes my hair gets gray when I talk about it, because it means that I'm getting old. But yeah, I did Igem. My first Igem experience was before Igem had sponsorship for DNA synthesis. So the first time I did Igem, we spent most of the summer, actually almost everything we did in the lab was just to build our circuit. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot. It was the craziest project I got involved with, and we got to participate and fly to Boston and present our project. It was a great experience. But when we look back at what we were doing, we were actually just assembling DNA. We had very little time to do any other stuff, to actually prove that what we were doing was feasible. And in the next year, we weren't expecting, but Igem started this partnership with IDT. Nowadays they have, Igem has another partnership with Twist. But in that year, when the IDT partnership started, suddenly we could synthesize stuff. And we were actually one of the first labs in my university to use synthesis. And now we had the entire summer to characterize what we were doing, to actually go to the lab and prove that our idea worked, instead of just assembling DNA pieces. It was a completely different game. We didn't feel like we were in a different league. It was very, very powerful to actually be able to have everything synthesized and then spend our time doing science. I would like to thank IDT and Twist for providing this opportunity for Igemers, especially those that have less resources, that don't have access to synthesis as we didn't have back then. So I could feel this transformation in Igem. I could feel this transformation from spending a lot of time assembling stuff. And I'm sure if you talk with older Igemers, they will share the same experience. You use it to spend a lot of time building your circuit, and then you could, after starting on 2015, you could spend a lot of time proving that your idea worked. And that was completely life-changing.
DNA synthesis has how IDT and Twist Biosynthesis have really transformed how Igemers and Igem teams around the world do their science. So we're going to actually talk a bit more about DNA synthesis if the audience goes to the Zoom breakout room, where we're going to be joined by Vinu and Guilherme and also Adam Clore from IDT. But before that Zoom breakout room, we're first going to focus this session on automation and the future of the lab. So I'm joined by Professor Douglas Densmore from Boston University, and let's dive right into the session. It seems like a lot of labs buy robots that sit gathering dust because robots need a fair bit of babysitting. And most life scientists would rather babysit a cell culture than a robot. How do you see that changing?
That's a good question. So I think people that buy robots often have a misperception that you're going to buy a robot and it's going to basically replace you. A robot is a complementary piece of hardware to the people in the lab. So what the robot is going to do is the robot is going to do things more replicably, hopefully faster, maybe not only faster in terms of an individual operation, what I would call maybe the latency of the operation, but also how many you can do at once, which I'd call the throughput of the operation. So it's a tool. And just like any tool, whether it be a knife or a hammer or an axe, you have to keep your tools in good order. You have to make sure they have the right software. You have to make sure that they're tuned correctly, that they're maintained. And so I think, first of all, people don't understand that relationship. So they get it when it stops working the way they'd want, they give up on it and they move to something else, not thinking about the fact that if they invested the time to keep it running, that could be useful over the long term. So that's one part. The responsibility is on the part of the biologist or the experimentalist to keep that relationship right. But then the flip side is it's also the responsibility of the robotic manufacturers and the automation vendors to make lower those barriers, to make it easier to program these, easier to maintain them, make them more robust, and figure out where their failure points are and make sure that they try to eliminate those. So it's this kind of complex ecosystem. And so, but it's also, to the tool analogy, if you have some very specific woodworking piece of equipment and it doesn't work, maybe you're okay. But if your screwdriver breaks, you can't do anything. And so part of this, I think, when is going to happen is that our robots need to become more like screwdrivers, meaning that they're more integrated and needed in the process. Because then if they break, no matter what, you're going to have to get them fixed.
Yeah.
If you commute every day and your car breaks, you have to get it fixed. But if your motorized skateboard breaks, like, don't have to worry about that. It's not crucial. So it's these factors: biologist side, vendor side, and then making all of it critical so that it's prioritized and urgent.
Do you think synthetic biologists are generally going to end up needing to learn a bit about the hardware, like the same way many biologists have had to learn how to use like R and other software tools? Like for me, I started out in biochemistry, and I moved more towards bioinformatics, needing to learn Python and R, and I think biology itself has transformed a lot into a quantitative field. I think there's a lot more mathematics and computer science than I had hoped for, but I'm really excited to be learning computer science. But how about the hardware? Do you think we'll need to adopt more, I guess, hardware knowledge?
The short answer is yes. People's skills are going to evolve and change, and there's some things that I think are fundamental that we're going to keep, and some things that are going to go away. Like I don't know how to use a slide rule, like I couldn't, but I imagine an engineer 50 years ago would be very familiar with a slide rule. But we both know how to add. So we both know the fundamental aspects, the adding, the calculus, but our tools are different. And so you can know all the R in the world, all the MATLAB in the world, but if you don't know the math behind what you're trying to program, it's useless. I can be the best robot programmer, but if I don't understand the biological protocol that I'm trying to get implemented. So again, it is a tool. So the tool is changing, and the way you use the tool happens to be programmatic. So you're going to have to change your skill set. I think, like we're not going to be using like people when they're training, like I'm sure, I'm not particularly an experimentalist, but there are experimental techniques that are not nearly as prevalent and probably don't need to be run, either because now there are kits that do this or machines that do things in a particular way. A robot is another machine, and that infrastructure is programmed. If I were talking to young people getting an education, learning a programming language is never a bad thing.
A follow-up on the programming questions, what are some of the most common programming languages that you would recommend biologists to learn? I mean, I hear about Python a lot, and I see, when I'm scrolling through either LinkedIn or Facebook, the BioPython package is really popular. Even when I'm reading through papers, a lot of tools use BioPython. I guess it depends on what exactly you're trying to do.
I mean, there are classes of languages. There are some that are compiled. There are some that are interpreted. So the interpreted languages, these kind of scripting languages that are lightweight and you can run very quickly and have a relatively low learning curve, kind of a minute to learn, lifetime to master kind of thing, are the Perls, the Pythons, Ruby. Python is a good one to know. Again, I don't think anyone ever wishes they didn't know Python. So I think that is a good script. Then there's the more mathematical sides, the MATLABs, the Rs. And then there are kind of the traditional object-oriented programming languages like C, C++, Java. Then there are some of the web technologies like JavaScript. I would probably take a look at the research you're interested in doing and look at the computational aspects in that field and see what they're built on and pick two things. So I think Python is probably a good one. Then I would either pick something like a standard object-oriented language like a Java or C, or move to like a web framework like a JavaScript.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. That makes sense. So moving on to the next question, do you think automation is going to end up making synthetic bio more centralized the way DNA synthesis now happens? Or will we instead have a robot on every bench?
That's a good question. I don't think we're going to have a robot in every bench. If I had to choose, I would say it's going to be more centralized, because it's just back to my first point about the relationship between the human and the robot. There's a relationship there. It needs to be maintained, updated. It's the same reason we don't see servers on every desk. So computers got better, and it wasn't now that everyone has Amazon on their desk. It's become a more centralized model, because maintaining a data warehouse is costly. No one really cares about where their data is. They just want it to be a reliable, available, archived. And I think that'll often be the case with the biology. Like, I don't really need the pipette. That's not like what I'm enjoying. I'm not enjoying picking it. I'm enjoying the results. And so I think it will become more centralized, because also it'll become prohibitive to maintain and do that equipment. So this is where these cloud labs become interesting. What's the business model behind them and how that works? I think the other thing about them becoming centralized is it democratizes the field a little bit. Like, if my background's electrical engineering, I don't really want to run a lab. Like, running a lab is not particularly fun. You fill out a lot of safety paperwork and have to maintain things and keep inventories. I just kind of want to do the research. And so I think a lot of people that are on the fringes that aren't traditionally experimentalists that want to get involved in a centralized infrastructural work. That being said, computing has this where it's not everyone but if you want to have a server, you can have one. So I think it'll be a mix. The people who want to do particular things will have a robot on their desk, but I think the majority of folks that aren't particularly interested in that will go to a centralized model.
Okay.
It's just what that takes. It's really the barrier right now is just the flavors of what's offered in a centralized model. Like, everyone wants their own quote unquote flavor, and no one quite does it the way you want. So then you're like, I'm just going to do it in-house.
My sense is that one barrier to lab automation being adopted and more people using like foundry style setups is that biology isn't very standardized. So it's very hard to like hand off your process to someone else and, have it recreated. I think you would agree with that statement, or do you think other barriers are more important?
I think the standardization is a big part. It's the standardization of the data and the experiments. That's part of it. I think there's a big difference between like exploratory research and production research. So the exploratory research is when you're trying this new thing and you want to tinker with this, and then you really don't know what I'm doing on Wednesday because I haven't figured out what happened on Monday. So it is this dynamic process. But then at some point you figure out what you're trying to do and you want to ramp up the production of it. So some of these facilities might be for commercial entities. Like, I may be a computational biology company, but I want to make a product, but I don't want to have my own lab, my own factory to spin some of this up. So I might use a cloud lab to spin up some initial production until I get somewhere. So once you know what you're doing, I think these services could be really useful. And then like now I have standardized it into this service. This happens even in the semiconductor industry. Like, when you're ready to make your chip, you don't make your chip. You test it. There's a series of simulation, both hardware and software. Like, there's software simulation and hardware emulation that happen at a place like Intel before you actually make the chip, because it costs a lot. And so I think there's going to be the same kind of back and forth where there's some kind of prototyping, and then when you're ready, you'll use these external services. But there will need to be standards, and and just people. Also, the big point, last point I'm making this rant is people also have to be ready to accept like the standard. Like, when I go to McDonald's, I don't love everything about McDonald's, but you don't go in there with really exotic orders. Like, you don't go in and say, I want 4 patties and then hold this and do that. When you go, you're expecting a certain experience. And and it's the same with standard. Like, when I go in, I get this menu of services, and I'm not trying to tweak it and get all exotic, because I know if I do that, it's fundamentally going to break. Like, if you do that at McDonald's, you know they're going to get your order wrong. Like, you're like, something is going to go wrong. They're not used to that. That's not, you go somewhere else for this. Like, I think the foundries will be very similar. Like, you go in there and you order off the menu, and you get a very consistent, reliable experience, and you can do that for 70% of what you do, and the other 30% you have to do more exotic stuff.
Yeah. I really like that analogy. That helps explain the whole dynamic. Okay. And what do you see happening with lab automation outside of really highly resourced labs and countries? I mean, we've sort of touched on this with standardization, but any other barriers?
centralization.
Yeah.
Is democratization that,
Yeah.
like everyone's not going to have the $100,000 to $500,000 robot. Like that's just not even forget that. I mean, let's say you do get that. Let's say you win the lottery and get that, but then you have the $30,000 every couple of year service contract. So eventually that's how it becomes a paperweight. So that's why the centralization is going to be key. That way the lab, like in the developing world, could say, they're in my demographic or in my geographic area, there are cloud facilities I can work with that are regulated, that are secure, that are, they're doing things around biosafety and bioethics. That also helps centralize some of those concerns. Instead of having a bunch of people going rogue and doing different things, we have centralized logged repositories of people setting designs. They don't have to maintain the equipment, they get data back. We work on material transfer agreements that we can get that. So I think that's going to help. We have the same problem even in 2021 with computing still, though. It's like in the pandemic, naively, you might think, oh, online classes, how hard can that be? Everyone's got the internet, and you realize everyone's got the internet in 2021. So if we're working on it in computers, we're, still going to be decades behind in biology, but I still think that's really
Wow, that was a really exciting session with Doug. And now I'd like to invite everyone over to the Zoom breakout room where we're going to talk a bit more about DNA synthesis. And I'm going to be joined by Vinu and Doug, as well as Adam Claw from IDT and Guilherme. But that's in the Zoom breakout room. Now, the next session, so stay on the live stream, is the pre-incubator Igem Epic, Igem Startups and Epic. So let the countdown to the next session begin. Can your Igem project be worth $1 billion? It's happened before. Can you make it happen again? Join the next session. And in this session, we're going to talk more about Igem startups and Epic. And if you're a current Igemer, how can you be involved with commercializing your science, but also just understanding the entrepreneurship landscape and what Epic has to offer to past and current Igemers. Let's dive right in. So Igem Epic stands for Entrepreneurship Program Innovation Community, an epic name, and it supports the development of Igem's entrepreneurial community. This vision of the program is to become the driving force behind hundreds of synbio-based startups globally to help accelerate our transition to a more sustainable bioeconomy. The core of the program is focused on supporting Igemers by connecting them to relevant co-founders, mentors, accelerators, investors, and partners. This is done through a range of activities globally, including the Venture Creation Lab, Mentorship Program, Fast Track Program, and the annual Startup Showcase. Before we start the session, let's watch a quick video by the Director of Entrepreneurship at Igem, Will Wright.
Hello, I'm Will, the Director of Entrepreneurship at the Igem Foundation, and responsible for EPIC, the Entrepreneurship Program and Innovation Community. The Entrepreneurship Program and Innovation Community represents all of the startups and innovations that have come out of the competition over the last many years. We've now grown to a community of just over 157 startups, worth over $5 billion, and creating products that help solve challenges in food, health, and water. Our work in the Entrepreneurship Program is about increasing the amount of impact our Igem projects have in the real world, for anyone who wants to continue with their projects beyond the competition and turn them into a venture. We work with teams all over the world to make entrepreneurship an accessible toolkit, alongside synthetic biology, to help people create local hubs of innovation where they can create jobs and symbiote solutions to local challenges. It's our hope that after you complete the competition this year, that you'll consider continuing with your project and will join us in the Entrepreneurship Program 2022.
Today we have the pre-incubator, Igem Startups and Epic, and I'm joined by Marilyn and Chen Kai, the co-chairs of Igem Epic. Hi, how are you guys? What is Igem Epic and what does it do?
So thanks for asking. So we are the entrepreneurship community, essentially, of Igem itself. And what we do is that we aim to help Igem alumni who might have projects that they are intending to commercialize but have no idea where to start with, to bring them their ideas into fruition. So we provide a 3-week-long boot camp at the beginning of the year to help them learn about entrepreneurship concepts and to understand better how their projects can lead to sustainable business models that can then create impact in the future. So after that, we also have a full-on program in the entire year, which continues on with a mentorship program, as well as various events such as the Fast Track program and the Startup Showcase. And the whole idea is to really try and foster all these wonderful projects that came out of Igem and see how they can actually bring all these ideas out into the market to create a better, more impactful world and future for us.
I would like to add that this is the second year that we run the program. So
Yes.
last year was our pilot year, and this year is an upgraded version. It looks a lot like last year, but bigger and better. Yeah.
And I also wanted to ask about the Venture Creation Labs. Could you tell us a bit more about that program?
Sure. So it's our flagship program, as mentioned. We run it in the March to April period of every year, or in supposedly every year. Hopefully, we will have another iteration again next year. And what we do is that in this 3-week program, we invite all these Igem alumni to come back and submit their applications if they think that their projects are something that they would like to commercialize. And in this 3 weeks, we put them through an intensive, very homework-driven course whereby we ask them to work on various concepts such as the business model canvas, customer validation, and see how all their startups actually apply to all these concepts as well.
I wanted to also ask, how can Igemers increase their chances of getting into the program?
It's not about your expert level or how good of an entrepreneur you are. What we're looking for is Igem alumni who are motivated to take their projects to the next level. And you don't even need to have the greatest idea yet. Like our VCL program is there to refine your idea and maybe even come back to that brainstorming phase and see if you can tweak it a little bit better. So we know that Igemers are most of the time just scientists, and that's our target audience. You don't need to be an expert. You're just here to learn a lot and be motivated. And if you don't have an idea yet, the Sustainable Development Goals are a great way to start. Gather a group of people who are also interested in being entrepreneurs and just brainstorm about problems and creative solutions.
Yeah, I'd like to mention that since ultimately these are very impact-driven startups, you have to kind of start thinking from the problem at hand. So most of the time, a lot of scientists don't realize that their solutions are not exactly actual realizable solutions in real life. So the good thing is that if you think about what problem you're trying to solve, make it very clear, that will definitely increase your chances of getting in the program because you understand what exactly it takes to form a sustainable business based off a synthetic biology concept. So that's another way you can think about it as well.
The next question I wanted to ask Marilyn was, what makes the EPIC program different from all the other programs out there?
Yeah, great question again. Basically, for me, it comes down to two things. Our program is not focused on a specific region. So we're not Boston based, we're not Silicon Valley, we're global. It's really fun to share experiences with people from Africa or people from the APAC region. Like you have all these different cultural cultural differences, but also these local problems that people are solving, like local people solving local problems. That is EPIC, right? We have these startups globally, and I think that's what makes it different from all the programs out there. The other thing is the fact that we have this big base, this big database of Igem alumni who have gone through this process before. And these people are in our network, and they are here to be panelists, to be judges during our mock Shark Tank trials. They're here to be mentors. They're here to really guide our participants in becoming successful like they are.
Yep, that's the Igem Epic X Factor.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. And finally, I heard that you both have a surprise reveal.
Yeah, so this year we're doing we have a new program, especially designed for the Igem participants of this year. It's the summer boot camp. And it's going to be a really fun teaching experience for the students. Because what we found from feedback from previous iGemmers is that they're really interested in the Supporting Entrepreneur Prize. They don't really know how or where to start, or how to write a business plan, or how to, like most students are scientists. So we're here this summer to help them.
Amazing. And finally, is the big questions on everyone's mind is, well, at least on my mind, is Igem finally having a merchandise store?
Yes, that's also a big reveal. Yes, so Nemanja and I have been working really hard on getting the Igem merch store ready this year. It should be up now already. So there will be hoodies, t-shirts, socks, phone cases, anything. Like if you want to show you're proud of Igem, please buy something and wear it with love.
Awesome. Right, so now we're going to hear a quick word from Varun, who was part of the 2020 San Diego Igem team, and who now was able to, with the help of Igem, the Igem Epic program, was able to make that transition from, an Igem team and commercialize his research and be part of that whole entrepreneurship journey. Definitely one of the success stories. Let's see what he has to say about his experience with Igem, with startups, and with Epic.
Hey everyone, my name is Varun Goville. I was part of Igem in 2017 and 2018, actually. And in 2018, when I was the lead of the UC San Diego team, we actually won second place internationally for the development of a novel liquid biopsy for the early detection of liver cancer. Since that time point, I actually have stayed involved with Igem, being North America's ambassador the year after, and then participating in the Epic Venture Creation Labs last year.
So, what made you want to join Igem Epic?
Yeah, I think it was this wish to go beyond just really good science and building something that could actually be feasible in the market, right? I think one thing that often happens is a lot of really good technologies just sort of get left on the shelf and never heard from again. And we didn't want that happening with the technology that we had been working on.
That was a really, really exciting session. Thank you to Chen Kai and Marilyn. And I want to sign up for Igem Epic right now. And you can now, to talk to them more about the Igem Epic program, you can move over to the Zoom breakout room. And to stay on the live stream, I'd like to call Guilherme to introduce the next session.
Yay, I'm back. Zishan, actually, I was Googling. I was going to make a joke that I had dust because I just traveled through the core of Earth since we are on different sides of the world, but I actually realized that if I did that, I would end up in the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. So if you are in Brazil, don't do that. This is a bad idea. You may end up waking up Godzilla. So our next story will be about resilience. It will be about success in a different way. The challenges we all face through the Igem competition and, well, the resilience to overcome them and to learn from them. So, Director Nemanja, you can start the countdown. And Zishan, have you ever thought that if there is a will right, we may have an evil twin called want wrong?
Yes. Where is he?
And now you can talk about will right or want wrong on the Zoom room, or if you stayed here, you can't go back anymore. We will go to our next session and talk a little bit about the challenges and the resilience of Igem teams. For our next session, I would like to talk about failures. Failures are an essential part of the Igem journey, of the science journey, of the entrepreneurship journey, of the life journey. We all go through failures and we all learn from our failures. Usually, or many times, we don't talk about our failures in the scientific community, in the entrepreneurship community, in our daily lives. But they are an essential part of being an Igmer. I was searching for stories about challenges, about failures, and I actually found an amazing Igem blog post wrote by our next guest that is exactly about this. Our next guest is Youssef Abdel Maksoud. Youssef is currently an Igem ambassador for Africa, and he's an Igem alumni. And he wrote an outstanding blog post that I invite you all to read after this session. Please stay with us right now. That is called An Igem Failure Story, a team's cascade of mistakes. It's a super interesting read. So before we start talking about the story itself, I'd like to ask you, Youssef, so how did you start? You did Igem in Egypt, right? In the Cairo team, correct?
Yeah, actually, we as a team started way back in 2017, in late 2017. We decided to participate in the competition, and I started the team. And we decided not to participate in that year because we were aware of the obstacles and problems that we could be faced with. And we had a problem with securing the funding. We know we will have this problem, so we decided to give ourselves the time and to participate in the 2019 edition of Igem. And that's what happened. We went to Boston in 2019 and we won a bronze medal.
Actually, the first time I participated in Igem, I also got a bronze medal in 2014 with my team. And that is also a failure story. We had several problems in our project. We were all very young, so we had we made a lot of bad decisions in designing our entire project. But I'd like to hear about yours. How was your story?
Okay, let me start with the project itself. Our project was a biological desalination project. We want to find a new way to desalinate water without the drawbacks of the current solutions. And we worked on two different approaches. And the thing is that we had the goal of going to Boston with a fully functional desalination plant or desalination system. This is not possible, like, for any Igem team, I think. Like, we wanted to go with a cup of seawater and give people a fresh water to drink. Maybe they won't drink it because of the safety concerns, but still, that's what was our goal. Later on, we had to adjust this goal because it was an unrealistic goal. And having unrealistic goals in general was a failure, was a mistake that we had to learn from and to adjust.
So what were a few of the challenges that you faced through your journey?
Another thing that happened from the start was the failure to document everything in the best way. Like, we were aware that documentation is important and we were trying our best, but our best wasn't enough. We learned that later, and we had like a system of documentation that works for us, but at the beginning that was not there. Like, our fundraising effort at the beginning all went undocumented. We didn't share the pictures from one of the meeting with a head of a big company in Egypt, just because the pictures were shaky and they were unusable. The same thing happened in the lab. Like the documentation of our first days in the lab was very bad. No one can continue an experiment that started by another one, and this had to go through a lot of testing and trying to reach a working formula. I think part of Igem is to fail. Like Igem is a student-led competition, and it's fine, totally fine to fail and to have to commit some mistakes.
That's a very interesting point, and I went through a very similar experience, as I already said, in 2014, and I learned so much from all the mistakes we did, like from choosing the wrong chassis in the beginning, then choosing the wrong validation process for the things that we were doing, then to not documenting correctly and not having records of what we did, and then it was super hard to explain what we did because we didn't take notes correctly. And then we went to Boston, and we met, of course, we met a lot of amazing projects, but we also met other students that went through problems too, and that were talking about their problems, and they were enjoying the experience of being a gamer. And I also met a lot of judges that were like, you should do something different here, something different there. And this whole feedback experience and be part of a community that accepts mistakes or misconceptions as part of the engineering and science process, this was super powerful to me, and it made me a much, much better scientist. And I know that you have a funny story about your presentation on Boston, that you were preparing it. Can you share this story?
Okay, actually we prepared the whole presentation on the presentation night. Like before traveling to Boston, we were not satisfied with our poster. So when we went to Boston, the first thing we started with was preparing the poster because we have to print it. And we finished preparing the poster on the night of the presentation. Like we were in the first day of the Grand Prix, so we were not lucky on that front. So we started preparing the presentation, and we finished it, I think maybe something like 12 a.m. And we were not all of us were at our Airbnb, so we had to return to it, and we made a mistake. I made the mistake. We requested an Uber to Heinz Convention Center because I had a list of all the places in Boston that we have to go to, and we went to Heinz Convention Center at night on the presentation night with no sleep, and we were so lost. I believe it was the Halloween night, so everything was closed and we couldn't even find a cab, and we had a problem with our internet connection, so we couldn't even request another Uber. Yeah, that was like a horror story somehow. Finally we returned to our place and slept. We couldn't do anything for the presentation. Like we didn't do any rehearsal before the presentation. Like we did all of it in the morning on our way to the Heinz Convention Center.
That's a very interesting story. I mean, of course, it wasn't a happy moment when we were leaving it, but of course, it's a memory a story that you can be talking about in 20, 30 years. A fun memory that you will always have. So when you look back to the entire experience of being an gamer, getting a bronze medal is an achievement. It recognizes that you achieved a lot of stuff. I'm very proud of my bronze medal in 2014. I actually think that I did Igem 3 times, and I think that was, and in the other 2 opportunities I got gold medals. My team got gold medals. But when I look back, this is my favorite project because we made so many mistakes. Everything was wrong, but I learned so much. I grew so much as a scientist, and I'm sure that what I did after that was totally related to all the mistakes I made and everything that I learned that I shouldn't be doing. So I'm very proud of that experience when I look back to it. what is your opinion when you look back to the entire journey of starting a team in 2017 and then going through the scientific process, the engineering process, and making mistakes that we all make? When you look back to your story, what do you see?
Actually, I see Igem as the best thing that happened despite everything. Like, I'm here talking about a failure story, but it was not all failure, and it was like a valuable lesson, a valuable learning experience. What I am hoping for is to take it to the next level. Like, if I manage to participate in Igem again, that one, I don't want it to be like the same kind of failures. I want new failures in the next time, and that's why I wrote about this, to help others avoid them, to help others be aware of those and manage to avoid them.
That's awesome. That's a great story, and the way you deal with it, like talking about it, and of course there are lessons that people can learn from this, but it's also powerful because it's about sharing not so successful stories, and we all have many stories like this to share. So if you start sharing, other people can see and think like, oh, actually this is right. I should be proud of what I did, and I should share this with others so people can learn. And in the end of the day, this is how we progress in science and engineering. It's much more about the failures that we do, and we let other people know that this is not the pathway, this doesn't work. That helps science and engineering to progress.
Yeah, I'm very proud of every run in the lab that failed. I'm very proud of every decision that was not the right decision. I'm very proud of the first fundraising effort that went totally unsuccessful because we have no idea what we are doing. I'm very proud of the failures that are not totally failures. Like I mentioned that in the article, that in our fundraising effort, like, we asked for a specific amount of money, and we certainly could have asked for more, and we needed more, but we underestimated what others can pay for us. So that was something that couldn't be learned just by asking. We had to try and see the results. But this is something that I'm very proud of.
That's awesome. That's an amazing story. Thank you so much for joining the session. And if you want to hear more about the details of this story, you can read the blog post, and it has some very, very nice additional stuff. And thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure. That was an amazing and super inspiring story, and I'm sure I related a lot to that. I'm sure thousands of Igmers out there relate to. This is part of the Igem journey that we talked about earlier today, and this is also a success story. And I'm sure the more time you passes, you realize that the more you learn it and how it was a huge success. I can say this. I already mentioned today earlier my experience in 2014. We got a bronze medal. It was a very ambitious project that almost everything didn't work. But when I look back to my pathway, my career pathway, and my human being pathway, I remember a lot from the lessons I learned in that year. It was an amazing year. And okay, yeah. My director is yelling at me that I keep talking too much. We are getting delayed. Sorry. Yeah, okay, calm down, Nemanja. Okay, calm down. Okay, so let's start the countdown. You have 10 seconds to either go to the Zoom room and talk with Youssef and share stories of your Igem journey, or stay with me and see the project from Okay, Nemanja is yelling at me that I shouldn't have started the countdown. But yeah, it's your fault. You keep yelling. I get confused. Okay, so before I start the countdown, let me explain the next session. For the next session, we will have a team that participated in 2014, got the bronze medal as my team did, and then returned in 2015, William and Mary, to get the grand prize, to go on stage and present to thousands of Igmers, and they delivered an amazing project. I remember watching their presentation and being delighted by that wonderful project. So now we will talk to them to hear about this story, about what happened after that, and yeah, to meet those amazing people. So Nemanja, okay, now let's do it again. We will get it right this time. Start the countdown, please. Okay, now you can either go to Zoom or stay with me to talk and to hear the stories of William Mary 2015. Pick your pathway. And here we go. So for the next session, I will have some guests sharing some stories of when they did Igem and the outcome of this, of being, they were actually, I will not make a surprise. They were Igem finalists. They were on stage talking to hundreds, thousands, millions of people. No, probably just thousands. But they are here to share their Igem journey and their experience of being Igem finalist and what they are doing nowadays. So how did this impact their pathway? So hello, John. Hello, Angie. Thanks for joining. How did this first year go? I know that you were part of this first year. John was not. How was that experience overall?
Yeah, I mean, the experience was great. The results were not. So I mean, I think the biggest thing we had is at William & Mary, there's no synthetic biologist. There really isn't anyone sort of in the Igem or Igem adjacent space from a professorial or postdoc or PhD or anything point of view. And so we're really figuring everything else or everything out on our own and like setting up our own lab and trying to get things to clone, etc. And so I think we spent like, the 10 or 12 weeks getting 2 constructs to clone correctly. And we had a much grander vision, as all Igem teams do. And so in the end, we went to the conference, we went to the Jamboree, and got our bronze medal and got a lot of helpful feedback on how to maybe do a bit better next time, and got to hear a lot of exciting ideas and came back with a renewed sense that this is something we should do and give it another shot.
Actually, I had a similar experience in 2014 because it was the first time my university was participating. It was the first time I was participating, and my project is terrible. Everything failed. We learned a lot, but it was it was very difficult. And then after that, my university had other teams, and it went well. But it didn't went as well as you did, because in 1 year I was in the audience watching the finalist presentation and seeing you on the stage. So how was this experience?
There was a Igem team meetup that was held at the middle of the summer at the University of Maryland. And we went to this, and even then we were talking to other teams about like, oh, it's so hard to design primers because you design them and then they don't work. And I remember there were some people from the Duke University Igem team who were like, oh, don't you use IDT's oligo analyzer? And we were like, what? So we didn't know that you could computationally predict if your primers were going to work beforehand. We were just hoping that it would work when we got the sequence. And so like even things like that, we were just clueless about. And so it was definitely a massive learning experience.
So let's travel back 5.5 years, if my math is not wrong. You are sitting down. It's the final day of Igem, and they are going to announce the finalists. Were you expecting to be?
we weren't there because we were late.
You were not there.
We were late.
We were running a little bit late.
So how did you know? How did you discover that you would be a finalist?
We were staying in a hotel that was like a 30-minute drive away because we wanted to save money. And so, and of course, when you have like 10 people in the morning, some people will be slow. And so we're kind of late getting out the door. We're in 2 different Ubers going to the conference center. And so me and Andy are in the first Uber that arrives. And so we go, and we're stressed out a little bit because we're late and we want to get good seats. But obviously, we didn't miss anything important because we will not be finalists, right? So not a big deal. So we go up to the top and we sit down conveniently next to the University of Maryland Igem team. And we're just kind of watching things happen. But we notice that the people next to us are just kind of like they keep looking at us, and they're like, eventually, one girl passes us her phone, and she has written like, "Hey, you guys are finalists. What are you doing?" And we're like, "Is this a prank?"
Surely this has to be a mix-up, right?
Yeah.
So we go down. I think we're on. If people remember, the Heinz Convention Center used to be in this like two-story auditorium, right? And we're on the top floor. Like we're literally as far away from the stage as is humanly possible, right? We're all the way in the back. And so we go up to like one of the ushers, and we're like, "Hey, do you know who the teams who are the finalists for undergrad are?" They're like, "Oh, it's Heidelberg," which of course everyone remembers Heidelberg. They're like, "Yeah, and I don't remember the other team." It's like, "Oh, that's probably us, right? Like there's a decent chance." It's like no one knows who we are. And so we end up running down and confirming it. And, at that point, like I didn't have my Igem branded t-shirt because like, of course, like why would I need to be wearing that? I'm just here to enjoy the show. And so that's like packed in one of our bags, right? That's back at the hotel. And so I'm texting someone who's coming in the second Uber, like, "Hey, I need your shirt because I'm about to present for the finalists." And of course, no one believes you when you're texting them this. So there wasn't it wasn't us reacting to like, "Oh, our name appearing on the screen and everyone like rejoicing." It was like very frantic, chaotic, like, "Oh God, where's the shirt? Like, wait, who has the laptop that this talk is on? Like, wait, where is that talk actually?" So
And this
it
is
was a
all
bit
like
more chaotic.
during other people's presentations. Like while the high school finalists are presenting, we're just scrambling and trying. Thankfully, our college starts with a W because we were the third ones to present. Because like otherwise we would not have been ready. Like we had laptop problems. Like it was on Andy's laptop, the talk, but for some reason it just crashed that morning, like as we were setting it up.
Because of course it had to, right?
So we had to get it off someone else's laptop, but it wasn't the absolute final version. So they're trying to like connect to Dropbox with the terrible Wi-Fi in the convention center as Heidelberg is presenting. We're just trying to get the final version of the talk loaded onto a laptop.
That's an awesome story. Like I wasn't aware of that. Like when I invited you, I was expecting. We were happy, we were excited. Not that you were like in an Uber. That's so cool. And what was the feeling like when you go on stage, and then you have all those people? They are all fanatic. They are enthusiasts of synthetic biology. They want to hear what you are going to say. How is this feeling?
Yeah, well, at the time, I was still completely numb. In fact, I have no memory of giving the talk, actually. Like, it's just completely wiped from my memory. Like, I can try and remember, but I can't. Because I assume in that mode, I just went into autopilot and just lost consciousness, probably. Because, yeah.
Similar to John, I don't actually remember like giving the middle portion of the talk, but I remember standing up there and there's like bright lights looking down on you, and like you see this little laptop and you're on the giant stage with the giant projector. And I remember like thinking of like, "Oh, what should I say?" Like, like this is strange. But then I just clicked and then it was like, "Oh, this is just the intro slide, which I've given 30 times now." And so I know exactly what I'm going to say.
Awesome. And I remember watching your presentation. I actually have this memory, and I remember thinking, "Oh, those guys!" Like I remember thinking that your project would win, and really enjoyed your presentation. And I remember thinking, like, "Oh, it should be nice to be like to be sure that your project is really good," because it was clear that it was an amazing project.
We thought the idea was good for sure. Because it's a very, very good idea of like taking the idea of BioBricks, right? So just to summarize, our project idea was to characterize the noisiness of promoters. So, Igem's philosophy is all about characterizing the parts in the BioBrick library so other people can build with them. But mostly, the characterization is about how strong is it, how weak is it, and not looking at the variance. And so our project was giving a useful way to characterize the variance of these parts, so that we can have that aspect in the library. So that was very good, and we knew that was good. The problem is that, and I'm sure every Igem team experiences this, that nothing works. that you want to work. And so you're just doing the best with what little data that you have. We had like n equals 1 for our major result, right? And it's like, this is the best we could do. And then we go and see all these talks that everybody is doing so many cool things. All the projects look like, they turned out so good because we don't know their story of like how many failures they had, right? So we are like, oh, we were really hoping that we could maybe win best in track for measurement, which I believe had 7 teams that year. And so we were like, I really, really hope that maybe we can be the best of these 7 teams. But we were not sure. We were really anxious about it the night before.
We thought, yes. So there was a discussion. There's like, we're all crammed into these 2 tiny hotel rooms, right? And so it's the night before the actual finalists or the presentations happen and the awards, and we're all debating like, are we going to be nominated for best in track for measurement, right? It's like, are we one of the top 3 of the 7 in measurement? And there was a real range of different confidences on the team. It's like one person was like, yeah, 100% we're in it. But like we were going down the list and we're like, I don't know, like these people had a good project, these people had a good project. Like it feels like maybe we'll be number 4 out of 7 and we won't even get nominated.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I think, and like most iGEM projects, I think anyways, from my experiences, you start off with a very grand goal, right? Of like, oh, we're going to characterize all these pieces. And then we're going to show that if you build a circuit with these bad pieces that are high noise, it doesn't work. And you build a circuit with the low noise and it does work, right? And like that was sort of the vision of, oh, we do all this characterization, but we actually show that it matters with this real world example. And instead it's just like, hey, we were going to characterize 10. We got 3 with an N of 1. We didn't do any application, but like we think it's a good idea. And, that somehow ends up winning. And and other people think that's great, right? Because they haven't seen the story from like where you think it should be in your head to where it ended up.
If there is one memory that you will keep like 50 years from now, you will be talking about this to your grandkid, telling the same story for the 20th time again. What is this story? What is this memory that you will keep?
I think the hecticness of that morning is really hard to top. I think that's really just a dramatic narrative in and of itself. But I will say also another moment that was really nice was we were in the airport on the way back, the Boston airport, and of course, the conference has just ended, so there's like many iGEMers there just waiting for their plane, and these people come up to us and they're like, oh, we're from Wisconsin Lutheran College Igem team. And we're like, I have never heard of Wisconsin Lutheran College, but also, right, they have never heard of William and Mary before now. So we're on equal footing. And they were like, oh, it was super inspiring to see you guys up there because it really, gave us hope that like these small schools, we can still make a big impact. And I think that was really nice and very, very reassuring because I think that's what IGEM is really about, right? You don't have to be like at a place like Harvard or Stanford in order to like do really cool things. Obviously, if you are, you can still do cool things, but it's not a requirement. And so the fact that we could like be that kind of validation for people and show that like that is part of IGEM's philosophy was really nice to be part of.
If I had to pick one that's like, the memory that's most crystallized and I look back to the most is one that's not at the conference at all. It's from when we were working on the project and at our school, at least, we do most of it over the summer as sort of like a dedicated time where you're just working on iGEM. But the conference happens after school started, right? So like you're taking all your classes and you're still trying to wrap things up, right? And for us, once the summer was over, we still had no data. So like we still had nothing. So we had to keep working during the school year. And John, Caroline, and we were all working, pretty hard. And I remember we were trying to get these final constructs and we had to validate them with confocal microscopy, which for future iGEM teams is just a terrible idea. Just don't do a project that requires confocal microscopy. It's a huge mistake. But there was this point in time where the three of us were there and we were taking these samples of our final constructs, and this we really didn't have much time left. This was really sort of like a near the do or die moment for this thing. And I remember we got it on the confocal and it actually worked. And like you could see the two different colors in each cell. And I just remember like this wave of some mix of just pure relief from actually having something to show, and like this real satisfaction from knowing that we took something from this idea that we had a few months ago, right? All the way through to actual data that was new and we were the first people to see for these constructs, and thinking like, oh, this is really what Igem is about, where you can take people who, you know, don't know that primers can form duplexes and that you can check that computationally. And in like a few months with like a team of, you know, 7 or 8 people or whatever it is, go from an idea to like new scientific knowledge that will be a contribution. And I think like that joy in getting to do it with really close friends and people who I'll know for the rest of my life is something that like that's what I'll remember and tell my kids down the line.
I will tell you, probably Nemanja, the director, he's talking to me and you can see, and his messages are like, amazing, outstanding, yes, yes, bravo. So I think he's enjoying this conversation. So I'd like to hear what happened after that, because I know that you did Igem other years, in other seasons, but when you look back like 5 years from that moment, what is this impact on the John and Andy that I'm talking to nowadays?
Something I'm currently learning a lot about is like, what does it take to like be a good and creative scientist in terms of like, you know, coming up with ideas and like, you know, following them through in rigorous ways, things like that. And I think Igem was a really great experience and training ground for kind of developing that sense in me before coming to graduate school. Because I think, you know, the fact that with Igem, it's such like an original kind of project that you're doing, right? You kind of take ownership of this project that you came up with and you're seeing it all the way through, and you have to do all of it, like everything from the design to reading the literature to doing the science to documenting it on the wiki to like doing outreach and communication. Like every single part you have to do
Making the
everything.
shirts.
Yeah, you have to make the t-shirts, like every aspect. And so like I think like getting the experience to have such complete ownership over a scientific project as an undergraduate is really, really rare. But I also think it's super valuable. And coming into grad school, I felt like, you know, because I had those experiences, I was really well placed to kind of succeed at what I was doing.
For a lot of people, definitely for me, at that point in my life, that was by far the largest project that was really my own, right? And you're doing it with a team, but without, at least in our school, without a ton of professorial oversight, right? And so there's a real sense of like you're trying to do it, and you're trying to do it for yourself and for your team and for your school, and you're trying to do the absolute best that you can. And going through that process was really great for me personally, and I think professionally as well. And it applies to science, but also applies to sort of anything else where, you know, you want to do a good job. And I think there aren't a lot of places or a lot of experiences where you give like 19 and 20-year-olds just like, here's, you know, like 50 to $100,000, go and do a bunch of stuff and like, you know, report your results to the world, and, you know, just, you know, let us know when that happens. And so I think sort of the novelty and the completeness of Igem is something that sticks with you no matter what you end up going into.
And do you have any message to the people that are just joining there, that are just starting their Igem journey? Would you like to share any wisdom or advice or
I guess, you know, you can use IDT's oligo analyzer to see if your primers will form duplexes or not.
Oh man, there's the thing is, right, it's like this is one of the things where it's so hard to get started. So like good job for even trying. Like it's really tough, especially if you're in a school where you're not able to piggyback off of students who have already done it before or things like that. Um, I think, getting to the conference on time on the day of being a finalist, I think would be something I would recommend recommend to everyone.
Yeah, it's really tough because, as you say, there's so many challenges that, you can do all of your homework and it will not matter. There will always be things that will hold you up and nothing will work the way you want it to. But I think, that is the Igem experience really. And I think, that is something that itself should be valued and treasured. And maybe in the moment it's hard to do so, but certainly for me, I think the memories from Igem, I think they would not be so powerful without the struggle. But yeah, but I think it's very much when you're like young people trying to do ambitious and important things, you will fail. That's just part of it. And so learning how to fail, I think, is one of the very most important things that you can learn from Igem. And so I think try to take the value from that you can.
That's awesome. That's an outstanding message, and thank you so much for joining. It's I'm a fan of that year project. I still remember you on stage, and I couldn't imagine that you were not super ready. I was like, yeah, those guys they woke up in the morning, take some coffee, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to Highness to win the Bybrick trophy. Like, yeah, this is easy. So I couldn't imagine that all that happened. But yeah, congratulations, and I can truly see the Igem spirit on your stories, and it's awesome. And sharing this with the community is extremely powerful. Thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
That was a super fun session. It's unbelievable, all those stories. And if you want to hear more, if you want to connect with John and Andre, if you want to talk more with them and hear more, I don't know what else they can tell. They have such great stories. But yeah, if you want to connect with them, talk to them, especially if you are an Igmer from 2014, 2015, 2016, you may have actually met them. If you want to connect back with them, you can join the Zoom room, or you can stay with us in the live session for the Igem Core Values session. I don't remember if you gave another name, Nemanja. Sorry if you did. But yeah, it's about the core values of Igem. And let's go. So I wasn't actually looking to the clock. So yeah, the clock is right now. You can pick. You can go to the Zoom or stay with me. And we are done. And for our next session, I would like to share with you one of the most powerful stories I have ever heard, to be honest. Not in Igem, in life. It's a very inspiring story that was very important for me when I was a bit younger, when I started Igem, when I started synthetic biology, and it had a deep impact in how I see the world and how I see synthetic biology. And I'd like to share this story with you. I won't give more details because I will let the people that build this story tell it themselves. Hello guys, can you tell our audience a little bit more about where are you from? Where did, like, I know the story, so I know why you choose to work with honey. I know that this is connected to your region. So where are you from? Where is Sumbawagan? And why did you choose to work with honey?
We are from Sumbawa in the eastern part of Indonesia. Maybe Indonesia is famous with Bali. If you know Bali, our island, Sumbawa is an island. So we live in the city, and Sumbawa Island is near from Bali. It's like maybe you can take 2 flights from Bali and then you will arrive in Sumbawa. So honey has been one of our region identity. It's like everyone will know, where are you from? Oh, Sumbawa. I mean, you have honey and something like that.
So what Cindy has been explained before. So Sumbawa is a very small region in eastern part of Indonesia, but there is this problem about honey adulteration, where most of people try to fake this honey, try to make something that is not original, the original of the honey from our region. So it make the local people become suffer for because of it. they suffer loss, especially the honey farmers, because these problems. And we try to address that problem by in the synthetic biology by creating a genetically modified E. coli that is able to measure the glucose concentration of honey, of Sumbawa honey, because the concentration of glucose in Sumbawa honey is different compared to the concentration of glucose of honey from the other regions. So based on that specific difference in the concentration of the glucose, we try to measure that specific glucose concentration that is specific in Sumbawa honey. Then we can try to determine whether it is fake or not. Then in that way, we hope that we can help honey farmers in Sumbawa. So yeah, people, for example, they want to buy honey from Sumbawa. We can first measure its glucose concentration by this device, and then yeah, we got that specific concentration, and then we can say, yeah, this is the right, the original Sumbawa honey.
But one of the many reasons that a lot of people discussed your project, shared your story during those past 7 years, is because it illustrates really well one of the key concepts of Igem, that is local people solving local problems. So you are taking this powerful tool of synthetic biology, bringing it to your reality, and facing a problem that is very important for you. Of course, this concept, this idea can be applied in other places. It can be applied around the globe, and this is also powerful. But in the end of the day, you are solving something that is very important for your community using the synthetic biology tools. So you joined the competition, you had this idea, and you would like to tackle this problem. How did the Igem project go? Like, how was developing the project itself?
Actually, we really started the team when we actually didn't have enough knowledge about biotechnology, so we really started from the scratch at that moment. Like the moment we felt confused about what synthetic biology is and then how to construct the gene, like we really learned from zero at that moment. So yeah, that was how we started the team.
Probably this is one of the reasons that I enjoy your story so much, because I can relate a lot to it. In 2014 was my first experience with Igem, and I was 17, and I was young. I was just starting my undergrad, and I had no idea what I was doing. Like, no idea at all. I was like, I'm going to fix this huge problem that a lot of scientists can't fix, but I don't know what a promoter is. This is how I started my journey that year. So I learned a lot about synthetic biology by doing and by failing, because nothing worked in my project.
Actually, because we are from a very new university, so RC just established in 2013, and then 2014 we start this very big competition. And the drawbacks is in our university we have lack of facilities. Like we don't have any advanced facilities to conduct this research, because talking about synthetic biology, we're talking about molecular biology, we're talking about DNAs, and we need all this expensive and very advanced equipments in order to finish the project. But the thing is, because we are from new university and we are in the very small regions, and it is very hard for us to finish the project due to some technical limitations. So yeah, back then we need to collaborate with a lot of institutions in order for us to be able to finish the project. And also I remember that we developed our own lab equipment. For example, if bench, like a bench that have like a hood, then we don't have that kind of things back then. And then we made it by ourselves, that we made it using a woods, and then we try to wrap the surrounding with it using a plastic to prevent from contaminations, because we don't have a wood back then. And then we put like this flame inside our made equipments back, and then we just do our laboratory stuff in that place. It's not that sterile, but it just make us become more understanding more about the, we have understand about our project, the concept, the
And how was flying to Boston? How was going to the Igem competition? It was the first ever giant jamboree. Um, yeah, in 2013, Igem still had regional jamborees. This was the first time with this many teams that all of them were meeting together, and the giant jamboree was created. So it was a huge moment for Igem too. So how was the experience? Leaving Indonesia, flying to Boston, meeting all those amazing people.
And honestly, that is very first our experience to go to abroad to the other countries, especially the United States of America, is the big countries and so far away from our homeland. And honestly, you have to know about Sumbawa. Sumbawa is like a small region and like the bottom 5 province with the under how human development index is the very small area and underdeveloped area, and we can call that remote area in Indonesia. So we are from the remote area. We can't imagine we can stay or we can touch down to United States of America. We have never to dreams about to flow to the United States of America. It's very first our experience, and Igem competition is our very first jumping stone to our next career and our next education.
Getting to the US for the students from Eastern Indonesia is such a breakthrough because actually there is a gap between the development of Western Indonesia and Eastern Indonesia. So actually nobody expected us who came from Eastern Indonesia to fly that far because normally it's mostly the students from Eastern Indonesia who represent the country to compete in any international competition. So it was such a breakthrough for us to get there.
And how was the trip? How long does it take to go from Sumbawa to Boston?
Right, I'll say it as it should be around 22 hours. So we had a series of flights from Sumbawa to Lombok, so another island next to us. Then from Lombok to Jakarta, the capital city. So it was another 2 hours flight. So then we stayed for a night or two in Jakarta for finalizing our preparation, and then we flew from Jakarta to Hong Kong for 8 hours, and then from Hong Kong to Newark, it was in New Jersey. We took another 14 hours, I guess. So it's actually roughly 24 hours from the scratch. So then from New Jersey, we took a train trip to Boston.
It's far. Okay, so you arrived in Boston. What was your reaction to seeing the other projects, the other people that went through the Igem journey too, but in their own very unique ways?
At the time, my team first time to join in Igem, and we know we will facing the best university in the world, like Harvard and MIT and other university. So beside that, we know we don't have many instrument, machine or other. So for example, we don't have microcentrifuge. So sometimes we use blender, So we try to construction the machine because we don't have the real machine like microcentrifuge, PCR and other. But we believe if we have to try the project and we want to hard work, so we can do it. I think it's very amazing. It's very amazing because it's first time our team first joined in Igem and first time as the winner in Chairman's Award.
I can tell this story, like how I saw it happening, because I was from a university that never participated in Igem. I'm from Brazil. That is a country that doesn't have a lot of Igem teams. I also had to build some equipment because we didn't have. I remember taking photos. We didn't have the best equipment to take photos of bacteria in a plate, so we used an umbrella to adjust the light, and we sold candies to pay the registration. We made pizza. We made Easter eggs. So I can relate to some of the stories that you are sharing, and we got the bronze medal, and we were so proud of the medal we got and the result we get, because we understand that we were trying to accomplish something big. We were trying to solve a problem. We couldn't solve the problem, unfortunately, but we took some steps in that direction. And I remember watching the finalist, the final day, the closing ceremony. I saw those amazing projects of people that were much closer to actually solving problems, and they delivered great great ideas. I remember I'm a very emotional person, so I got emotional. I was like, oh my God, the world is so bad. There's so many problems out there, but I'm surrounded by 4,000 people that are trying to solve those problems, and those are the people that will actually solve them. And I want to be part of this. And I was super into everything that was happening. And then Randy goes on stage and tells your story. And it's a story about a team from a place, I'm sorry, but I had never heard about Sumbawa until then. It was the first time, yeah, it was the first time I heard about it. It's a very far place, a place that I don't know. And it was an university that was super new. Much younger. Like we are talking about universities that have been around for hundreds of years, and your university was 1 year old. So, it's a new university. You don't have access to equipment, and well, you go there and you build your equipment, and you go there and you do the best science that you can do with the resources around you, and you are trying to solve a very important problem for your region. And actually, I come from a family that I have uncles that produce honey. They claim I'm from Mafra. It's a very small farmer area, rural area in southern Brazil. They claim they have the best honey in the world. Probably people in Sumbawa would be very upset with this claim, but my family produces honey, and I could see your project, your idea, your concept helping them. People that I didn't know that I could help with my science. So you're actually talking about real people, going to them and providing them a solution. So it's a very powerful story because it summarizes what is being part of Igem. It summarizes the excellence, and excellence is not fancy results and fancy equipment. No, it's doing the best with the resources you have, and doing the best science and engineering that you can. It talks about sportsmanship, about going there and explaining what you did and what you didn't do, and this is very important too. So it summarizes what is to be an Igmer. And I remember sitting down, hearing the story. I think I cried a little bit hearing it, and and then for the people that were not there, because this was in 2014, everyone in the audience stand up and started to clap, and it was very powerful to see thousands of students celebrating your team, celebrating your journey, celebrating your story. So it was very, very powerful. This was the first Chairman Award. It was something that no one was expecting, and it was very. It made me think about the scientist that I want to be, someone that solves problems of real people, someone that tries to achieve the best with the resources I have. So it was an amazing. So how was your reaction? So you were sitting down, waiting the closing ceremony, and this was announced. How did you react?
Actually, at that moment, we just hoped that we could bring the bronze medal home. So once we made it at that moment, we felt like, okay, we accomplished the mission already. So we felt content already at that moment. And we didn't expect anything else. There were so many great teams there, and we felt like everybody just deserved the award. So we just tried to enjoy the show. And after all the awards were announced, we we're just waiting for the grand prize winners. But then the Igem president just came to the stage, mentioning about a new award for the first time ever, and they mentioned a lot about a team who unfortunately, like a team who have unfortunate conditions and a lot of limitations, and even created their own equipment. I was starting to think like, wait, is this award getting? Is this award for us? I was afraid to say that. I just didn't want to be overconfident with that because I think like maybe not for us, but I think it sounds for us. So we kept guessing at that moment. And then we saw our name in those two giant screen. It was just us screaming out loud. It was like, what? We just didn't have any thoughts on mind at that moment. And then when people say like, oh, just come on up the whole theme, we were even more surprised because we didn't expect to go to the stage fully. So yeah, it was like mixed feeling. We still couldn't believe, and we saw from the stage like thousands of people um, giving us applause. Even some of the judges giving us standing applause. I was freezing for a couple of seconds. It was like, wait, God, is it true?
Yeah, I think that makes me cry too, because after they announced the winners, and then I remember all of the efforts and all the hard work that we have doing for months, and then they just make me happy, and but also cry at the same times. But that is very like the feeling of happiness and satisfying after you accomplish something because of your hard work. Uh, that is very good.
And we have thousands of Igmers that are starting their Igem journey today. This is the first day of the Igem season. So what is your message for them, especially for those that are from universities that never participated or from regions that have fewer teams? What is the message that you would like to share with your fellow Igmers?
It's really important to enjoy the process. Basically, I mean, Igem itself has have such a pressure from the project itself. I mean, if we keep thinking about the pressure, about we have to get done, we have to accomplish the whole steps of the project, I think we're gonna put too much pressure on ourselves. I believe that it's really important to enjoy every single process from the scratch, like from building the team and then getting registered and then deciding your project until you get done to the wet lab project, when you approach the community, when you try to accomplish them, and then you will face tons of failures probably in the lab when you see like you're stuck and the project just don't make any progress. I believe that it's really important to just enjoy the experience and just keep learning from every single thing. I just realized that to be in Igem, you don't have to like finish the whole thing, but it's really important to make progress. Make sure that we just make some progress. Even the failure is still a progress. Like at least we learn about why we failed from the experiment, I guess, and then what's supposed to do to overcome those failures. I think that's really important. The learning process and the experience is absolutely important, if I can say, for all the teams. So really, it's really important to enjoy the process and then have a team bonding, because Igem is definitely a team competition. I mean, it's good when we have like genius individuals and then great persons there, but without the team bonding, without the chemistry, it's not gonna happen, because Igem is like a combination of all efforts, patience, ideas, creativities. Your heart should be there together to reach the goals. Like if we have to fail, just fail together. Like don't just throw away somebody to cover the fail, and then the other just running away. So like just face everything together when maybe some members get down. So that's why the other team members are there, like just to cheer up each other. It's really important for us to get that chemistry.
I think it is important to think that there is nothing impossible in this world. Like we have proved that we come from very new university with limited facilities, but we are able to achieve something in Igem, and that is show that you can be anything. You can be anything that you want in the world. You can achieve anything as long as you have hopes, you have dreams, and you have efforts to make it come true. So I think it is really important to have this mindset that you can do anything as long as you wanted to.
I think we have a magical sentence which has where there is a will, there is a way. So we believe on that sentence, and we have a will to solve the problem in our community. And then during the process, we got a lot of support from many people. It's like from the farmer, from our parents, from our lecturer, from the society. So it's just believe that when we have a will, we can find a way to reach everything, I think.
If this is the first time you are participating in Igem, you may not know what are the Igem values, what are the core values that guide everything that the Igem Foundation designs. The Igem values are integrity, good sportsmanship, respect, honesty, celebration, cooperation, effort, and excellence. And when you hear those words, you understand why the first Chairman Wow Award went to this amazing team. It describes their amazing story. I'd like to thank you for sharing. It was super powerful and inspiring for everyone in our community. It's amazing to have you here. It was a wonderful session, and I hope you enjoyed too. And here we are, the end of the first day. This has been only 3 hours, but I am exhausted.
Well, it's almost 3 a.m. in Australia, and I'm still here.
Oh wow, I don't know if that's super late or super early, 3 a.m. But yeah, it has been really amazing to hear all the stories today.
Yeah, truly amazing. And we hope you enjoyed all of this. Don't forget, if you missed any of the sessions, they are instantly uploaded below the screen. And I have a final message for you. We have seen amazing stories from the past, from the present, and the future of Igem. And when we navigate through the river of memories and we hear all those tales about challenges overcome, about resilience, we can truly see what is being part of the Igem community, navigating through this roller coaster. Actually, you can't navigate through a roller coaster, but you get my point. You now could learn from those amazing experiences, and you could see with the eyes of the people that are imagining the future, and the people that will actually go there and build this future using the values we talked about in our previous session, using the vision Zishan shared, using the community Caro shared. Those folks, they are you. So I don't have anything else to add. Go out there and build the future. See you tomorrow. And for the final session of the day, we have a very, very special performance from your hosts. Let's go, guys. 1, 2, 3.
Boom.